Good morning, everyone. Good morning or good evening or good night, depending on where you are. And if you're here, you're probably going to have yourself a good day. But let's hope instead of a good day, we have ourselves a great day. From what I'm sensing here, the Sony A9 III is definitely happening. It's definitely going to be announced at 9 o'clock in the morning. As you can see, well, I'll show you shortly, we're watching the Sony channel for their announcement. We're going to cover it live at 9 o'clock. Between now and then, using my panel of guests, we're going to talk about the Sony A9, the A9 II, the A9 III, what we think this camera means. Is it really going to be the fastest mirrorless camera ever? And we do have a few specs, not a whole lot. Sony's really clamping down on things. I've got my phone here in case anything else comes through. I've got other sources here checking to see if anything else comes through between now and then, but we're expecting a really big announcement. I want to introduce my first guest. His name is, or his channel is, Stop the FOMO. And so let me switch over to his page because I really do appreciate him. He's been a supporter of this channel for a very, very long time. This is his channel here. And he's always reporting on everything TVs. There we go. Everything television. So if you want to know anything about televisions, he's the guy to watch. And he's an avid Sony shooter. And we just lost him. There we go. He's coming back in. There we go. Just as I introduce you.
Yeah, but just as you introduce me, I lose connection to the internet. How's it going?
It's going well. I keep wanting to mention your actual real name, but I'm, obviously protecting your privacy. But what I would love you to do is tell people a little bit about your channel and why Sony cameras are so important to you and your business.
So I had to choose an ecosystem because it affects everything I do, from the codecs I use, right? And for me, the Sony cameras, because I do TV reviews, so all my cameras are showing the TVs, and to get them to adjust them so that the colors match and to remove some of that flickering, all of that, for me, the Sony cameras just do it faster. I've tried other cameras and it's all about workflow speed because I know ultimately you can get all the cameras to look alike. So that's fine. But how fast does it take for me to do all of that? And so Sony ends up being the fastest for me with my DaVinci Resolve and then how I do things, how I edit. And so having bought into the Sony's ever since the A6400, I'm kind of, I don't want to say stuck because I do like Sony, right? However, there's some disappointments with the lack of firmware updates, overheating for me personally. But at the end of the day, they're good enough where I can't switch to another brand without it being so time consuming to relearn the entire workflow. So, but I really like it. I really like how Sony sets up their menu. I'm very used to it. I like all of their accessories. I use their digital audio connector with their input preamps a lot. I have like two of them for my cameras. I like their size. The FX30 is just phenomenal. So for my use case, they have the right models. Now I would like an A1 FX version at some point with a fan, right? And I'm hoping something comes out at this launch. And as tempting as the A9 III is, it appears to be such a specialized photo, and not just a photography camera, a high-speed photography. And I'm like, okay, I really like this. I like it when a brand takes a segment and say, look, we're going to make this segment, like for this segment, we are the best. We're going to have to compromise here and there. But if you are in this segment, sports photography, high-speed wildlife, I'm like, wow, that's a thing. I didn't know that. So I'm waiting for Sony to say, all right, if you are in this segment of the creator community, and which they did with FX3. So yeah, I appreciate that a lot. I'm hoping to be surprised. Maybe the A9 III is a little bit more for more people, but we'll see.
Well, at 9 o'clock is when we do get an announcement. Now, I want to say, I'm going to call out Sony Alpha Rumors and to be particular, Andrea Pizzani, because he has done a terrific job of reporting on all the forecasts and the rumors for Sony cameras in the past year, and his track record has been excellent. With the A9 III, though, he hasn't given us a whole lot because Sony's been really holding on to stuff. But the A9 III is supposed to be coming out announced this morning at Sony Creative Space 2023. There, you can see right on the screen here, we're going to follow it live at 9 o'clock. And they say in 54 minutes, something is going to start. So I'm wondering what's going to happen at the pre-show. Their pre-announcement. We'll just have to wait and see. I do have some more information. But before I do that, I just want to say a special thanks to Sennheiser because I don't know if it was last year or this year, early this year, but they sent me this microphone here that I'm using for all my live streams. It's a Sennheiser Profiler. I'm using the $199 one, and I've been using it for all my live streams. They also, for $129, you can get it without the boom arm, but that's with the boom arm. You're going to hear some noises in the background, and if you're married and have children, then you know what's going on. It's a school day. My wife is getting up. My son is getting up. They're going to go out and walk the dog, do breakfast, get everything together, and go out. And you're probably going to think, oh my God, this is going to be a terrible channel to watch. The noise is going to be horrendous. But just wait and see. I don't get any commissions off the sale of these guys, unless, of course, you use my affiliate links for B&H and Amazon or Adorama. But they're not paying me to say any of this stuff. You will get to hear how good it is yourselves, but there's no software. It's not like this Shure, the MV7, which I have. It provides you with software, gives you a few more capabilities, but this thing is, well, plug and play. You just plug it in, it lights up, and it's ready to go. So, but we're not here to talk about mics. We're here to talk about Sony, the A9 III, and in particular, let's take a look, stop the FOMO, at what we know, and we got some more information coming in. So here's what we know about. That's you again. So let's change slides here. Let's see what we know about the A9 III, the latest information coming in. So what we know is that that's Canon. There we go. Oh, here we are. The A9 III and the 300mm GM are supposed to be announced today at 9 o'clock at this event that's scheduled. And so that's really awesome. But also, the sensor. It's not going to be a stack sensor. Sony puts a lot of stack sensors or BSI sensors. If Sony's releasing a camera, and they released a camera in 2022, I can guarantee you it had at least a BSI sensor or a stack sensor. I don't recall one that didn't get one. I could be wrong. It could be wrong. I don't have the best memory in the world, but pretty well a BSI and stack sensor is what Sony throws out in their cameras. The A9 III is supposed to get a global shutter with a 24 megapixel resolution full frame sensor. And if yes, you're probably thinking about the Canon R3 because that's really the only camera that I can think of that is kind of a direct competitor based on what we're hearing here. Sports, fast action photography. A global shutter is really, really helpful here because what a global shutter does is it allows you to it clears the sensor all in one sweep. It's not scanning it line to line, which is what a standard stacked or BSI sensor does. And that's why it's called a rolling shutter. It creates that rolling shutter effect. With the latest stacked sensors, though, we don't see a whole lot of that. But what the global shutter does is completely eliminates any sort of, transformation of the image that's being captured. So that's really a big deal. But again, thanks to Andrea this morning, he told us something else, that it's going to be capable of shooting at 120 frames per second. 120 frames per second. Now, you think that number, you think, okay, 120 hertz, blackout-free EVF. No, it's not that. You think video for 120 frames per second in 4K. No, we're talking about continuous shooting speed here. Continuous shooting speed. That's pretty impressive. Now, keep in mind, though, it isn't the only camera that can do this. The Nikon Z9 can do 120 frames per second. But the Nikon Z9 is only doing 11 megapixels. So I'm really curious here. Stop the phone. What are you thinking about this stacked sensor in the A9 III?
Stack sensor or global?
See, these are the mistakes I make in my videos that I don't even catch in post, and people go, hey, you said this wrong, you typed this wrong. Yes, sorry, global shutter.
I was going to say all of that now it turns out to be stuck. I'm going to leave. that was the big secret you were holding back.
That was it.
Obviously, it's very hard to do, right? I mean, if the global center is the unicorn feature because it's the best possible way to get a certain speed of readout, but to get it, you have to lower your megapixel count because that's even more information. Then camera companies have to decide the benefit of reducing your pixel count to get to global shutter, or vice versa. You're at global shutter, but how many pixels can you really read? And so hearing what you're saying that Nikon only just with its fewer pixels is still struggling to get the speed it has, but it's not global. It's the best it can do with a stack center
Yeah.
sensor. Then ultimately, Sony has chosen its priorities, which is there is a group out there who, at all costs, they need the near perfection of a global shutter. So do what you can do with the pixel count, right? Increase it to as much as you can, but we need the global shutter as our priority because there are cameras out there that has high pixel count. We'll get that, right? We need 12K, 16K, it doesn't matter. There is a camera out there that can have all those pixels, but short of a very expensive professional cinema camera that does global, we don't have anything for this segment. And this is what Sony's done is, okay, we hear you. We want to be the only camera company that gives you global, but in return, you all accept the lower pixel count.
Yeah, and I want to talk about some of the, how shall we say, challenges that come with a global shutter. For one, you've talked about speed already, right? So there's a trade-off. You don't have as high a resolution, so 24 megapixels. It just so happens the competition is at 24, so it doesn't look like you walked out into public naked or anything. But then the other aspect is dynamic range and low light performance or low light noise. Traditionally, a global shutter isn't as good in these areas, and I'm not saying that Sony's implementation is going to have to face these challenges. They might have resolved this, and that's why I'm really waiting to see what's going to happen on the announcement as to how capable this is. Red, is it the V Raptor? Komodo. The Komodo has a, I was going to say stack sensor, global shutter, right? And looking at the footage there's something different about the footage. There's just something about it. It just feels different. It's kind of like driving a front-wheel drive car and then you go to a rear-wheel drive car or vice versa. You're still able to drive and turn and do everything you did before, but it just feels different. And shooting with a global shutter feels different. And this is where my ignorance stuff, the FOMO, comes in because I'm thinking, well, I shoot with a Canon R5. It doesn't have a stack sensor, a BSI sensor, and I do see some rolling shutter in 8K, but it's nothing that I don't see in cinema movies, so I don't really care. And I think a lot of people will say that. Well, who cares? Who needs it? Other people will say, oh, great, it's a new innovation. Sony's leading the market. And I want to be careful with my ignorance here because I haven't shot with it. I haven't seen it. I'm willing to see what Sony's going to present to us. What are your thoughts on what you think we might get out of this? What are your
So
thoughts on
you
it?
have, it's like if you're a wine drinker or a coffee barista, right? There is a level of sensitivity to your art that is so high that is, you're a connoisseur now. When you're video editing, so you know
Mhm.
how you know your child, right? You have a son, and every expression, you know his mood. You are so sensitive to that one thing or many things. And so those who want the global shutter, who have been shooting with global shutter on other cameras, on other things, now they want it in a hybrid. They are sensitive to all those things that we are not, which is you don't know what you don't know. And I'm just like you. I I deal with what I've had since the A6400, and then, as I go up the chain, I accept what they give me. I push it to its limit. I see a few flaws, but I don't know what it's like to live without those flaws.
Mm.
So until I get a global shutter, I can't say, oh, this difference just blows me away because I'm constantly trying to shoot in certain angles where without a global shutter, I cannot get that shot done, but I'm not there. So you're absolutely right. Now I do know others who have explained, how why it's better, but not having my own work product shot in global shutter and exploiting that, right? Taking full advantage of that. You're right. It's so hard. It's like high megapixel count, right? For photographers, unless you're zooming in and creating a giant billboard for a building, right? This huge megapixel counts, you really don't benefit from it unless you're blowing it up. But if you're just shooting in a small little 8 by 10, it doesn't matter how high your megapixel is, unless you're zooming into that tiny little part, your focus is perfect. And then if that's your thing, now now you're taking full advantage of it. So for me, it's all about high dynamic range because I
Yeah.
take lots of shots in the dark. And if global shutter doesn't improve low light dynamic range or overall dynamic range, I probably won't be able to take advantage of the global shutter myself.
Sensitivity. I think that was brilliant how you tied that in, is how we get used to something, good or bad. And then we see something new and we have to get used to that. I want to bring up this page from premiumbeat.com. And I think this kind of sums up the difference between a global shutter and a rolling shutter for those of you not familiar. At the top, that shot or that video frame was taken using a camera that has a global shutter. And the one below is a rolling shutter. You can see because of the speed at the we all know how fast rotors move on a helicopter. And this is what happens with a rolling shutter because it can't move the information off quickly enough that it actually looks like the rotors are bending. And so if you're shooting sports or anything fast action, motorsports, motocross, any of that sort of stuff, things are going to look a little warped. And so even a basketball, no one wants to see an oval basketball, right? So that's where a global shutter is really a big deal, is when you want everything to have its form, its transform, the way it is presented in reality. That's a really big deal. But yeah, the
Actually, no, you bring
sensitivity, that's a brilliant way to encapsulate it.
no, you bring up a good point about no one wants to see a round or an oval basketball, but then that goes back to in the film, which is where I'm more closely associated, right? TV and film, where 24 frames per second is what people want, but that's like the oval basketball. 24 frames per second adds a blur. It's cinematic, but it's not real. And I'm looking at that helicopter on top, on the bottom. On the bottom, the bent rotors adds a sense of motion. On top, the perfectly straight rotors is like it's stuck in the air. Nothing is moving. There is no motion. It's like, how did they do that? How did they stop the helicopter and lift it in the air, right? And so both actually work. But in cinema, the one on the bottom, this is what people are saying. Oh, I don't like the soap opera effect. Well, in real life, hyper reality, right? So the whole Gemini man
Yeah,
at
yeah.
120 frames per second, it looked too real. And maybe that's something that people will have to consider. If they get global shutter, they're like, wait a minute, this looks like a soap opera effect on film. So I don't know if that's a good thing. I mean, it's all your intent, your creative objective, right?
So many good points there. So first of all, Gemini Man, you also had to deal with the effect of the uncanny valley. I think I'm saying that wrong. Uncanny valley, something like that. But anyhow, it's how the rendered humans don't look. There's something off about them that creates a sense of awkwardness. And I did
Mhm.
feel a little bit of that uncanny valley there. But and this is one of the reasons why a lot of people say, well, yeah, global shutter for video makes sense because, as I said earlier, and when I was looking at getting a lens, the 28 to 70 millimeter f2, super sharp lens, but I'm also I like the f2 because when I shoot video, especially in low light, unlike a photographer, I can't take that shutter and play around with it. I basically got to double my frame rate, more or less. You can play with it. I don't have as many options. But the one nice thing I like about shooting the video is when it comes to the motion blur, if your lens isn't super sharp, as long as it's sharp in the center, that's important because that's where your subject is. But if it's not so sharp in the background, it doesn't matter as much. It's not as noticeable if you've got your lighting and your audio, for the very simple reason is between each frame, there is going to be motion blur. There has to be, or things don't look right. And that's why you generally have that rule of 180. So the faster the subject is moving, the more motion blur. So for example, that helicopter that you see in that second one, that does show animation in a 2D form. And I like that. Shooting sports photography for Sports Illustrated, it doesn't work. But there is a certain level of creativity. Now, if somebody's wondering, well, can you also have an option for rolling shutter in your camera? Not as yet. If you've got a global shutter or a rolling shutter. And I believe there's a rumor of a new cinema camera coming out in the somewhat affordable range. And in cinema, unaffordable is under $30,000. You're
Right.
looking at being able to swap out the sensor. So you can put in a rolling shutter or a global shutter. But yeah, really brilliant points. Creativity, English words speak me not. I think that's a very, very good point to bring up. That's brilliant. All right. I want to take a look and see if there's any more leaks that have come out since we've been doing things here. Let's take a look at our friend, Sony Alpha Rumors, because he already put out, he's like me. That guy is reporting all around the clock. So he's just talking about deals. Actually, speaking of deals, you'll notice that in the description down below, I have smart pre-order links for the A9 III as well as the 300mm GM. Those are what I call smart pre-order links. And once the pre-order links are available, if you use those links, it'll help you get into the queue a little bit quicker so you can get the cameras quicker. I think the A9 III is going to sell out pretty quickly, and then you could be waiting weeks or months. So if you use those, go ahead and bookmark them, put them in your browser. I have a feeling what Sony USA likes to do, Sony Europe is different, but Sony USA likes to wait 24 hours before their pre-order links are available. It's really annoying. But if you're in Europe, outside of North America, then you should be able to pre-order right after the embargo is lifted. But if you use those links, I do get a small commission back, which really helps support this channel. So that's very much appreciated. All right, so news here. Anything else? Sony Germany confirms a new camera is coming. Okay. So it's now official. Sony will announce new gear up for the A9 III with 24 megapixels and, of course, global shutter and 120 frames per second. So I can see, I don't know how well you guys know Andrea, but you know, we also talk behind the scenes, as I do just others like Craig, Canon Rumors. And when any of us are reporting things like I did last week, I had the price, I had the announcement time of those Canon lenses. I booked a live session like this, but in the meantime, I'm going, okay, what if my source, my reliable, trustworthy source is wrong? What if Canon decided to move it at the last minute just as a way to get us? And so even though we're getting stuff from reliable sources, and the stack sensor on the Canon R6 Mark II is a perfect example of where that went south, we're always nervous a little bit. And you can see in his writing and his expressions that he's now convinced 100% that it is coming, that he's got the specs, and that's really great to see. So he's super excited. The amount of exclamation points that he's using is a good sign of that. And look at this, confirmed by another source. It's not going to look like that. One thing, that's cute though. I got to admit, Andrea with his AI, it's pretty incredible what he can do. Really incredible stuff that what he does. And, you know, I don't always report the news and rumors first. Other people do, but I think it's very important to call out the credit because it takes a lot of work to develop sources over years. I mean, I've been doing this, 4 years, and I'm only now just being able to develop sources. It's tough to do because people giving you information, sometimes it comes from their marketing department, and sometimes people are leaking it, and you don't want to risk anyone's job. Last thing I'd want to do is that. So again, look at this. Oh, they say it's the most advanced autofocus system ever. Sony already had a good autofocus system. Wouldn't you say, Stop the FOMO?
That's one of the reasons why it's hard for me to leave Sony, because you don't know how good it is until you struggle with it. And yeah, even choice of lens on the Sony, right away you see it affecting the autofocus system. But yeah, that's for if you require high-speed autofocus and you're not into manual focus. Yeah, that's a good CGI effect. I almost believe that you have a puppy there.
Yeah, my wife likes to, she keeps telling me, you know, you put a puppy in the frame, your channel will explode. Put a puppy in the frame.
No. It's supposed to be you put a puppy in the frame, you get hit on by girls.
Well,
That's why guys walk their dogs in the park. You put a puppy in the frame, and suddenly you increased your female viewers by 50%.
but I've already got one. I've already got
Oh,
a girl.
that's the irony. That's the irony of it all.
Isn't that true? It's like when you're single, you can't find anyone. As soon as you're married or committed, it's like, oh, they come out of the
Yeah.
woodwork. And you get a puppy.
The guy pushing the baby carriage.
Okay.
Many girls approach them to say hello.
Oh, that's awesome. See, I warned you at the beginning. Life is happening around here. And even though I'm kind of in my little warp bubble here, people are like, I don't care if he's talking to live streaming around the world. I'm just going to go and put my nose in there. So yeah, you were talking about the autofocus. I want to say I'm very happy to see that Panasonic has jumped on the phase detect autofocus system bandwagon because these guys know how to do video. Panasonic's really good. I'm not just talking their cinema line. I know their GH cameras, S line of cameras. The only thing that was an issue was the autofocus system and the stuff they put into their cameras. It's still new. They're still improving upon it, but I think for video shooters, Lumix is the company to watch over the coming years. Canon and Sony also have very good autofocus systems, but most advanced, I'm sensing they're going to put that AI chip to better use and that we're not just going to see minor improvements. And I think that's really where it comes into is like when you're shooting eye-controlled autofocus, it knows where to lock on. It knows how to transition in a natural way, you know, without you having to go into the settings of, oh, I've got it set for fast focus, or I've got it set for slow focus. It sees there's a train or a plane. It goes, oh, well, I need to adjust the focusing parameters and all this to make sure I get that shot perfect. And it's a plane, so I'm going to focus on the cockpit, right? All these sorts of things that I think, because when it comes to the fastest, no, they're all fast. When it comes to accuracy, Canon, Sony are the two top. Nikon has improved a lot recently. Lumix has improved a lot recently, but it's not the specs, it's the intelligence, I think, that needs a lot of work. What do you think?
Well, focus tracking that's the thing, right? Is you're at a certain aperture where, low aperture, let's say you're at 1.4. Now your focus is challenged. I mean, this is the issue with some Sony lenses where the FX30, they're 35 millimeter equivalent. Very fast lens, but it affects the focus. It has a lot of hunting, right? But so that's one. But then even when you find the subject, it walks behind something and then it continues walking. Does it then focus on that something in the foreground and then find you again once you walk by it? That's all AI. That goes beyond just identifying, oh, I have one focus subject, but as long as he stays still, I'm good to go. With a lot of vlogging, a lot of YouTubers, we're constantly in and out of focus because we're walking around, we're talking to people are walking in the background, who is your subject? Who should they focus? Because now you have you're at full open, you're in a darker room, you're at 1.4. Now you have all these different people. Should you focus in the background, the foreground, as people are walking around? Can it second guess? And that's why cinema cameras or cinematographers don't care much about auto. They are all manual. Oh, well, look, we have a person right here who's in cinema, right? They're all about manual focus. So the camera they choose, it's not like, oh, does it have autofocus? It's more, how good is the lens? I'll take care of the focusing myself.
One thing, I want to address one comment that I'm seeing in the chat here before I introduce James Jackson, because it looks like he's playing around with settings right now. He looks good, but I know he's a DP, so he's trying to get everything lined up. So price raising. Yes, Sony did raise the prices, but I want to be honest and fair here. For years, we all know this about Sony. For those of us who have been following Sony, they were leading in coming cameras. First with 4K, first with this type of autofocus, first with this type of sensor, right? BSI stacked and all this stuff. And we all know the track record. And not only were they the first, but they were offering prices better than the competition. I mean, the A93, the A7 III, that was a really nice camera. But what happened with the A7 IV? Got a, $500 bump in price? And so people are focusing on, well, they got a huge bump in price. They just jacked up their prices. Well, what Sony was doing for many years is discounting to grab more market share, which effectively they've done. They brought themselves up to something like 26% market share based on SEPA worldwide shipped units, based on, I believe, 2021 numbers. That's impressive. That's a big deal. So I think what Sony's finally realized is, okay, we spent so many years pouring money into R&D. Let's try and maximize the investments. You're seeing a lot of the capabilities of cameras from 2020, like the A7S III. We're taking those same capabilities and we're putting them into the A6700, the FX3, the FX30, and A7C. They're starting to trickle down and they're maximizing their revenue. And so what they did with the A7 IV is they were just more or less matching market prices. The Canon EOS R6 was at that price. And that seems to be a pretty stable price because of the Japanese yen just dropping against all major currencies. when Canon released the R6 in 2020 July for what, $2,400, $2,500. When they released the R6 Mark II, it didn't get a price increase in the United States. In Europe, we did see a price increase. So what I'm predicting with the A9 III, lack of any other specifications, is I don't believe that the U.S. price is going to increase. I think that the forecasted price from Sony Alpha Rumors and others, the Camera Insider, is we're going to see the price right around $4,500. I don't think it's going to change too much. And this global shutter business, and I'd love to get James's thoughts on this as we talk a little bit, because James is really into cinematography. I just lost my thought. See, old man brain. I hate it when I do that. I just want to take a look at the room here. We've got 180 people, 181 watching. Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. You got my two main guests here, a regular Sony shooter as well as a cinematographer. And I just want to say hello to everybody who's in the room here. I saw Kathy join earlier. Bill's here, Michael. We got people from Canada, the US, the United States, Germany, India. So thank you everybody for dialing in. I'm not always going to be looking directly at you because I'm looking at all the telemetry that's coming in, and I'll be keeping an eye out for comments such as this one from Ted. And I think, James, this is a great way to introduce you. You have a channel by the same name, James Jackson Films. And let's just show people that, because I would like to encourage everybody to subscribe to you. So let's see. Let's go here.
Appreciate that.
James Jackson Films. And there's the one and only. So if you could go ahead and answer this question. Let's see, is it still on the screen? I got to change the time that it's on the screen by Ted. If you want to go ahead and read that and answer that question.
Do IMAX or red cameras shooting at 24 frames per second show warp helicopter blades? It depends. I can't speak on IMAX cameras particularly because I've never shot on one, but it's really only since the Komodo that has the global shutter, which you won't see the warp helicopter blades. Some of the older red cameras don't have slower readout speed compared to the new ones. So you'll probably still see something like that. It all really just depends on the camera you're using. The cameras that are probably you're not gonna see that in terms of high-end cinema cameras you're gonna see them in the Komodo X. You'll see it. You'll see it a little bit. You'll still see it on the Red V Raptors, but it's still pretty good. It's still really, really good. The Venice, outside of the Komodo, the Venice is probably the next one up. Because its readout speed is like 3 milliseconds in the full open gate, which is ridiculous. And then the ARRI cameras. The ARRI cameras, I think especially like the classic 3K one has a great readout speed. So, most cameras have some sort of distortion, but there's technology but even then, there's technology that is coming out that's really counteracting. Actually, if you got gyroscope data, and especially true if you have something like a Blackmagic Cinema camera, which they cost the high end one is like only $7,000. They use the gyro data to basically create to take away the rolling shutter. And when you put it in Resolve, it basically takes away the roll. Use that gyro data. It basically nullifies the rolling shutter. So, yes, there are cameras, but even high-end cinema cameras have some form of rolling shutter. So in that case, something like that, you'll still see some sort of warping. But honestly, if you're in a movie theater and you're sitting here going, man, that helicopter's blades are really warped. There's more problems with the movie than that.
James, now I don't know if you heard, because this just came out yesterday, and I know you were busy filming. Did you actually hear that the A9 III is actually getting a global shutter?
Yeah, you told me, which I think it's really. Yeah, no, I heard that, and honestly, that's really, really good. I think Sony is really putting all their chips into reducing that rolling shutter, so they definitely wanted in a lot of action. Me, I'm a little bit person who likes to slow down, likes to set up a tripod, get the shot how I want it. So barring I have something, unless I'm having something really fast, like obviously a train or like some car setup, the rolling shutter isn't as big of an issue to me. But obviously you got to pick the tool. So if you're doing very action spat, or you're doing with things with a lot of fast moving subjects, this is great. This is fantastic, and I think, but I think it's going to be more effective towards photographers and stills people, even more so than video. Because you still got cameras like the A7S III that's been out for a while, and a few other cameras that have not perfect global shutter, but it's so fast. It's like really the difference is not going to be as interesting compared to just having other features. But what do you? I didn't get a chance to hear you guys' thoughts about it. What do you guys think?
That's what I was saying. It's such a specific segment of super fast photographers, right? And I'm just wondering the relevance to video. So I was waiting for the dynamic range myself and see if that helps it. But if it doesn't, then I'm gonna start to lose a little interest.
Okay, I'm checking here. There's nothing new. I'm just checking for all the latest stuff. Let me check to see if my source has sent me anything.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm going to probably assume it's probably still going to be in the same dynamic range as the previous ones. Maybe a slight bump, but not anything that's really noticeable. Again, they already have cameras like the Venice and the Burano that can really take on those dynamic range. If you want to do high dynamic range options, because even the FX6, which I've shot a short narrative with, I mean, it has the same sensor as the A7S III and the FX3, and of course, I know the talk of the YouTube was that the creator was shot on majority on the FX3, and they have solid dynamic range. It's not leading class, but it's really, really good dynamic range. And honestly, uh, at least in terms of a cinematography standpoint, it's more important about knowing what to do with dynamic range. And I've been talking about this way more recently. It's way more of what to know with a certain amount of dynamic range and what you need to do with the camera versus the actual number. The number I don't really care as much, because that's not the point. It's just knowing how the camera operates in a certain mode, and knowing how to work with that with light, and to get the shot you're looking for with lighting, shaping lighting, and the type of lenses you're using. Honestly, the way YouTube has been discussing dynamic range lately, the way us content creators here on YouTube, it's made dynamic range to me very overrated in terms of a feature. It is. I'm sorry.
That is such a good point, because like for me, it's a specific use cases. In certain dark scenes at a certain ISO, there's just too much noise or too much macro blocking, right? So with increased dynamic range, is it a low light dynamic range that they're improving, or is it a high light? If it's high light, then it doesn't help me because it's my low light elimination of noise I need to focus on. So you're so right. It's like, well, where is this dynamic range that you need?
Okay.
And yeah, it's very specific.
I got to jump in now. I got to say this because I think, for one thing, it's kind of like shooting raw. Imagine we had 20 stops of dynamic range, for example. And I agree, it does depend on the logarithmic curve you have as to whether it's going to protect the highlights versus the shadows a bit more. But when you've got 20 stops of dynamic range, what happens in post is you can decide to focus and bring things down on the highlights and the shadows to explore more of that, or you can take it up. You have more driving room, even if you don't need all of that. And I've seen this time and time again. I've exposed everything properly. The face is around 35 IRE. And then I get into post and I'm thinking like, oh, this is a fall scene. I wish I could just pull out a bit more detail in those trees there. And I can't, because it's just black and there's no other information. So I think it's kind of like having a blank canvas. It gives you more room. It's not like you necessarily want to have every single representation on that IRE scale. It's not like you want to have 10-bit 444. You know, We don't need that, but having the options in post to be able to play around with things can be really, really, really helpful. And I want to say a special thanks to Pete Pack, because he just gave me a super chat, not the first. Thank you very much, Pack. And let's see what he has as a comment here. Hope chats get opened up. Forget the bots. I have 2 accounts, the premium, and I don't use to subscribe. I have 2 other accounts that I use to subscribe, but I like to watch YouTube premium, no ads. I got to admit, I used to have premium, but then I got tired because they would just keep surfing me up the same thing over and over again. And when I stopped subscribing, it's like the algorithm was better. I don't understand that, but thank you, Pac, for tuning in. And I want to take a look here. I'm a little bit concerned with Sony. I think they don't know how to tell time. So you can see that November the 7th, yeah, that's today. 2023, yep, that's today. 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, yep, that's okay. It's 8:10, but they're going to start broadcasting in 19 minutes. So what are we going to get in 19 minutes? Is it going to be 30 minutes of wonderful music and hypnotic visuals?
I hope not.
I hope not either. But I gotta come back at you about your comments. Like, yes, 20 stops of dynamic range. Again, it sounds nice, but the thing is, the tools that we already have can handle 12 stops like of dynamic range. Like, honestly, most productions only higher actual productions only expose for 10 stops of dynamic range because, well, our displays can really only see that much. So that, while it does seem cool to move it around, at the end of the day, if you still it still comes down to lighting. And as long as you have lights, because at the end of the day, you're still lighting and shaping things to tell the story. So yeah, you could pull things down, but you could also just shoot lower and throw lights in to compensate that underexposure as well. So again, the number 20 stops of dynamic range, because it sounds like, because it's the theoretical latitude that the human eye can see. But has anybody, now again, I don't know anybody that may have the best 20. I don't necessarily have the best 20/20 vision, but has anybody actually tried to look at a hot white entity and a black thing at the same time? Like, your head hurts if you actually ever tried to do that. Because it's your brain is
Especially if
trying
it's
to
one of
dissect.
these.
Yeah, no, because I've actually tried it where it's like there was this bright white car in a sunny day, and then I try to look at the undercarriage and the tires, literally at the same points at the same time, and it's like it's just splitting because you're trying to dissect so much information at once. Again, it really, to me, it's all about the log curve. The number doesn't matter. Honestly, if you have 12 stops, that is enough to do any type of production, high end, no matter what. It's really at that point just about how are you going to shape the image with lighting and lenses, your sets and locations, and how are you going to make the image look the way you look. Like I because at the end of the day, once you throw a light on, the whole dynamic range or how in dynamic, it's kind of irrelevant because you're already countering that with light source, and it doesn't cost to add light source. You can get $11 from those and get an insulator foam board and bounce light.
James, I want you to comment on something because I think lighting is one of the most important things outside of sound. Can you want to tell people why something like this is very important?
Absolutely. So a checker card, that's the Rite Aid one. I actually have that same one. But there's multiple reasons why. One, for lighting. One, you can get your level, so you can get your white point. You can see where the clipping point is, and use that to bring it down. You can use the black point, so you can see where your black point level is. But the more important thing with one of those cards is basically you got something that's supposed to represent the different colors that a camera could capture. So if you have multiple cameras, why is my phone going like stupid right now? Sorry. And basically if you have multiple cameras and you're either using different lenses or you're using different cameras that have different color spaces, you can basically use one of those and basically line up everything from a technical standpoint of how it's supposed to be. And then you can basically match any camera however you want to. So it's great of just like if you're doing multi-camera setups, it's great to know to get where your scene is and sort of where the levels will be. So That's one of the things. Guess what? How much is? I believe. How much was the one of those? Isn't it like $85?
No, well, this one's the color checker passport for video, and I believe it was on sale. Normal price was $130. Well, let's take a look. Let's go to the website and find out today's price. But I got it on sale on like Black Friday or something.
Yeah, yeah. To me, there's like two products that you should get if you are a filmmaker, or especially if you're a cinematographer. There's two things. One is one of those checker cards, which I really appreciate the X, right, because it actually has a skin tone line that gives you multiple skin tones that you can uh, that allows you to color and see. And then I will also say a Sakonic light, or some sort of a light meter, so you can
Yeah.
see where everything in your scene can where the levels are. Well, because while the camera can tell you this, it doesn't really, unless it's working with like an EL zone, it doesn't really tell you, or especially if you're working with a gaffer, the best way to communicate the levels. We've worked with them, but having something like a Sakonic and just see, or some sort of light meter and just seeing where everything is, will help you get the scene and get it down to how you want it to look.
Yeah, and tools and getting back to the basics and all that stuff, I find is one of the most important things. I used to struggle with Canon Log 1 and a little bit with Canon Log 3 in certain situations, especially at the lake shooting at a certain angle because of the colors. There's too much green, and in the backyard because there's too much brown and green, and I would always fight and struggle. And what I would do with this, you don't have to use it every time. Generally, I like shooting on sunny days, and I shoot between 10 o'clock and 6 o'clock. And so what I did is I went out and shot at the beach. I shot a whole bunch of footage, and I came back realizing I'd forgot this. So the next day at around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, I went outside, shot my son with a light hitting him the same way with a card, graded it, and copy and pasted the attributes over. Now, what was slightly different that I had to adjust from clip to clip was the highlights and the midtones, but the color balancing and all that stuff, the hue and luminance, bang on. And I saw scenes that I never saw before. It's like, oh my God, that's perfect. So using the right tool certainly makes a huge difference. And I got to say, if you're in Canada, you're probably paying $200 for this. In the US, you're paying about $120 for this. But
It's worth it.
get it.
It's worth
Get it. Yeah.
You can have it, and you can have it. It's just right in your bag. It's there. You'll be, and it will save you a lot of time and a lot of headache in post.
Yeah.
It
No,
will save you so much time.
as we get close to the 8:30 marks, I'm curious to see what we have there. And hello, Wayne Maddox. Good to see you there as well. And Pete, thank you for joining. FOMO, do you have any tips? Because what I like to do is with these announcements, I like to interject tips a little bit, because sometimes people will struggle for years going, Sony's crap with colors, Canon's crap with colors, and it's not using a color checker, for example, right? I think that whole thing that Canon produces better colors than anybody else has never shot with Canon, because yes, if you're shooting in bright light, noonday sun, 5,600 degrees, it's going to nail it. It's only going to be off by maybe 1 or 2% on anything. Shoot in low light, no, it doesn't know what it's doing. It's terrible. But all cameras are like that. No one has a mastery on looks and colors. You're just maybe being honest with ourselves. We're a little bit biased because that's what we shoot with. FOMO, any tips for the audience?
Well, it's interesting you asked that because I'm on Twitter and YouTube put out a question for creators, which they have these questions of the day. What are the most important pieces of equipment when you're doing YouTube, right? And I think their focus was on cameras as well, but what's on your list? So just like James was saying, number one on my list, right behind audio, microphone capture, and all of that, is lighting. And then dead last on my list is the actual camera body, right? I mean, I had lighting, I had everything else because the sensor, the body itself, if you have everything else right up front, and so for me, it was lighting was number one, then the ecosystem, because that determines what codec you're using, what format you're using, where are you going with? Are you going to go with DaVinci Resolve or Premiere? All of that determines how much time it takes to create a video, because I
Yeah.
assume all creators, time is money. And then at the end, once you have all of that kind of established, your choice of the camera body, full sensor, APS-C, becomes less relevant because everything else kind of takes care of itself. Because what I noticed, and this is what I ended up discovering, is the more I spent on lighting, the less I had to work in post because I had all that adjusted upfront. I mean, now my
Yes.
most expensive pieces of equipment are my lighting because I have so much of it, but you never replace it. I mean, how often does a light break, right? So when you have the good stuff, it's just forever. Yep,
So
you
I,
know,
I, I
it's
just,
stuff like that.
they didn't fail. These are the Ulanzi LED lights. These are what you see providing color in my background here and on my channel. But I reached out to them. I said, look, it's been 3 years. The recharge time's a little longer. I just want to make sure I'm always on the latest and greatest after 3 years of doing 1,100 videos. They sent me a new set. They had improvements. And despite making the settings the same as the other ones, guess what? The colors were off. The brightness was off. I'm going like, oh, no. So I used the Sakonic. And what I was able to do, at least, I got the colors. I eyed the colors. But to get the brightness, to get it to match, so I didn't have to go in and recalibrate the camera, I used the Sakonic light meter to slowly adjust the brightness of these guys here. And, your tools will save you a lot of time. For my studio videos downstairs, I have a preset on the camera, C2, and that's my ISO, my shutter, everything. So I turn it on, I'm ready to go. Like literally each video I shoot is 60 to 120 minutes. If I shoot it on the weekend or after hours, sometimes I might go 4 because I'm not in a rush and I want to make something better. But your settings, your presets, all that stuff make a huge difference on how quickly you can get content out the door. Like the video I did yesterday, I did rush it out. There was a spelling mistake. I think I did that within an hour. And that's an hour from idea to upload. And everything filled out. It's really, it makes a huge difference for me. It's not so much time as money. It's that I have time constraints because I have a day job, which I'm taking 3 hours of vacation this morning to be here with you to cover this. So if you're looking at paying the A93, please use my affiliate links down below. But your tools make a huge difference. And I would say the camera's the least important thing. I'd say that knowing how to shoot in terms of video modes or stills modes, understanding lighting, and if you're doing video, understanding audio, because scratchy audio will get people running away
Yeah,
pretty quickly.
yeah.
Yeah,
I would put up
yeah,
with that. Yeah,
yeah. It's funny that we're talking about all of this because one of the very first, I think it was if not the very first video I ever posted on my YouTube channel was the top 5 biggest investments you should make as a filmmaker. And I did not put a camera on that list. The list that I put, it was, let's see if I can remember. I put lenses as number 5. Then I put education and educating yourself in your field. Then I put sound for number 3. Then I put lighting. And then I put networking. It's like if you actually put more money into this, regardless of the camera, and it's especially true now since you've got apps and things like even on the phone, like you got Blackmagic's camera app that we have like right here now that will just get you all the like pro terminology and pro sort of features that you would have on like the heads, like shutter angle, having control of white balance, putting false colors, having histograms with traffic light signals. Like that's all now on the phone, and it's a free app that
Yeah.
you could use. Now it's iPhone only, so hopefully they'll come for the Android users. I'm not trying to start a whole big. I'm just saying I really do because it's such a cool thing because now you could put it on stuff that will actually really speed up your career, speed up the process. And again, and funny enough, when I did that video, people came at me and was like, "This is stupid. How are you going to make a video? How are you going to do a thing about filmmaking? You don't even talk about a camera." It's like because that's like literally like at best 30% of 30% of what makes a great looking image. All
Yeah.
the things that I talk about will take you far beyond. The lenses you choose will help build the character around it. The sound will help it enhance the immersion. The lighting will help you shape how you want to visually tell your story, and then constantly learning will help you grow. And then the network will get you to the people that will actually put you out there to get you paid.
I want
All
to
of that
talk
is
about
all.
a film. James. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, back in the late 70s. And if you look at that movie, you're not thinking, man, that's a crappy camera. What you're thinking is like, other than Richard Dreyfuss' character being just a little bit over the top and wrecking his house with a giant mountain, you don't feel like it was shot in the 70s. You feel like it was a period piece shot today. It just very well done. And you look at the cameras they were shooting with back then compared to today. You know, camera's one of the last things. I picked up the Canon 70D, I don't know, 10, 12-year-old camera, and I shot a few scenes with it, and I was like, oh my God, this is actually pretty good. Get your technique down. Get your skills down first. That's one of the most important things. But one thing I want to bring up as we're 4 minutes from 30 minutes from the actual announcement is losing the thought again, losing the thought. Bring it back, bring it back. Oh, I hate it when I do this. I had a great thought. Stop the FOMO. I've lost it. It's gone. It's evaporated. And I just lost 100 subscriber or viewers when I did that. Can you believe it? They're That's twice in this live stream. I'm trying to take into account everything that's going on, and I forgot oh yes, I remember now. So when it comes to video, so what I want us to think of now, because this is a sports and fast action camera, and we talked a lot about that in the first half an hour, 45 minutes. But now I want to think in terms of the video capabilities of this camera. According to what previous leaks from the Camera Insider, Photo Rumors, and Sony Alpha Rumors indicated that it was going to cap out at 4K 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second in 1080. But that isn't all that bad. Now, imagine now we're shooting with a global shutter. You're shooting sports. I want to, before we go to the obvious choice here, because Stop the FOMO, you've been quiet, what do you think that global shutter is going to do when it comes to video for those shooting scenarios?
Well, for me, probably nothing, because I'm more slow motion, right? For me, I do TV reviews, so I capture the TVs and I capture at 30 FPS. I don't even go up to 60 FPS. So because of some of my cameras, they crop in like the A7 IV at 60. So I use 30. I capture as much of the scene on the TV as possible. So I need that maximum dynamic range. Then I could zoom in and focus on the differences between the TVs. The global shutter, I know introduces, or rather, you don't have the warped effect. I've never had a problem with warped effect because I don't capture anything that's moving other than what's in the TV. So for me, it's flickers, LED flickers. So I like Sony's variable shutter for that. I also need to have more control. I mean, it would be nice to have an ND over lighting so that I can have a certain fixed aperture. But ultimately, it looks like global shutter doesn't affect me as a creator. And I can't think, unless there are features of the global shutter beyond capturing without warping that I'm not aware of. And it may have other benefits that I don't know about. So the problem is you don't know what you don't know. So I've never used global and I don't know what I'm missing not having it. So I'm definitely not one that is curious about it to the degree that, oh, it'll affect my creativity. But then hearing what James is saying, whether it affects him, like, oh, maybe it doesn't affect us video shooters as much as the photo shooters.
All right, well, let's turn over to James then. And James, because I think this has been largely ignored because we think of it as an R3-like camera. We think of it as shooting the Olympics, indoor venues, outdoor venues, various events, motocross, Formula One, etc. But now just imagine shooting video clips in those scenarios with a global shutter on this camera. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, like I said, but it for very specific things. I'll say like very high-end extreme sports things. Yeah, for video, it's going to be cool and it's going to be great. And there is some benefits to global shutter. Like it definitely a global shutter helps even to a degree with you're doing handheld or you with the IBIS. It does help with IBIS and stabilization in general, especially if you use warp stabilization. But again, I already have tools that counter that, and then there's software that does a lot of counter. I don't think it's as big of a deal video wise as uh, again outside of very extreme case scenarios. It's not that big of a deal as a cinematographer because we're all thinking about the frame and sort of frame, and that's still slow. It's usually still on sticks. Now, again, YouTubers is different. It may be just like the people that just run around, that just want to run around, go out and crazy and shoot. That will be a benefit of. But that also feels like there is so many cameras it seems Sony's produced for this same demographic over and over again for like this past year. So I'm just like, is this just basically when you got cameras like the A7S III or the FX3 that doesn't have a global shutter, but it's pretty damn near close in terms of readout speed, that you're not going to really pay that much mind to it. Is it going to be that much big of a difference? I don't know. Again, from a photo standpoint, it does make sense. It will make sense because there is, especially if you're dealing with stadiums and stuff, where you get dealing with all these LED lighters and you're dealing with these flickerers.
Oh yeah.
Having a global shutter is going to be huge. Still in those environments, and even if you're I will say this: if you are a wedding filmmaker, same thing with those LED lights. If you're dealing with like LED lights of venues, it will definitely help. And even with, he says, with controlling the shutter doing it to the increment, it's going to help. But outside of these situations, in terms of just a general filmmaker, it's a nice to have, but it's not needed.
I want to talk to you guys one more tip. So, here, let me just turn this down so you can see in the background. Actually, you can't right now. I'm going to turn the audio down. So I love this.
So we got a countdown.
We have a countdown now in music. So there you go. I'm going to go back to. See, now I forgot my thought again. This is what the third time. It was a tip too. Oh yes, I remember Flicker. So for example, when I shoot, guys, with my iPhone, I can't remember which version it is, but you know they say that the best camera is the one with you, and I didn't have my camera. I had the iPhone with me, and so I was shooting my wife, and it was inside, and it framed really well, and I took it into post, and we had this flicker going like crazy, and I'm like, ugh. But then I remembered, well, there's a very easy technique that you can do that doesn't cost you any money, whether you're in Resolve, Final Cut, Premiere, or any other video editing app that allows you to have multiple tracks. And so what I did is I took that one clip and I duplicated it. So on the Mac, you hold down Option, you just drag the clip up. So you want to stack the clips one on top of each other. Then the clip on the top, what you want to do is you want to trim one frame only, like the Hunt for Red October, one ping only, please. And you just shift it over one, and then you line them back up again. Then what you do for that top clip, the last thing you do is you go to opacity and you set it to 50%. And what that is going to do is going to eliminate the flicker by about 99%. Every 10 or 20 seconds, you might get a slight flicker, but you can always go in and edit out that one frame, and it's going to do a really terrific job. So I know when I shoot with the R5, I don't even think about this because it automatically knows how to deal with the lighting, so I don't have that flicker. But if you ever get footage, you got the flicker, that's the technique to get rid of it.
Well, in DaVinci Resolve, there's actually an anti-flicker thing, and literally you turn it on, I think it's to fluorescent.
Not surprise.
Yeah.
They're really good with that sort of stuff. So 26 minutes. I was wondering about that. So it is a countdown, 30 minutes. And I want to focus on the importance of this. So I've just checked my sources. The one that gave me the pricing on the Canon lenses last week, the time, other sources, they're saying we can't get anything. There's nothing coming out. The only person who's been able to leak anything is Andrea Pizzani. And I'm getting a sense a lot of people are on the move. So I get a sense this is really, really going to be a big announcement. We haven't talked about the 300 millimeter GM, which is also supposed to be announced. And if you're doing sports and fast action, you want you want a fast lens. So I'm really curious to see what that lens is going to be like, what the A9 III is going to be like. But I get a sense it isn't just going to be about the global shutter. I get a sense that Sony is taking a look at this camera and saying, look, don't look at the R3 as something to match. Look at the R3 as something to beat. To be the camera that gets all those Canon people who are tired of not getting all the lenses they want, try to get them to come over to Sony. I get a sense that this is going to be a big deal, that we're not going to be let down, which is why I'm doing a live stream. I find that whenever I do live streams for Sony's, get a lot of people saying, why don't you cover Sony more? And there's just not as much interest in the cameras. And maybe that's the A7S III, there was a lot of interest. And I think that's because people are seeing the minor iterations. They're not seeing huge innovation. But with the A9 III, I think we're going to see a whole bunch of innovation. Yeah, my source just said, yeah, they don't have anything. So honestly, you see it looks like, hey, he's not interested. He's looking over here. He's doing work. He's reading something. I am reading. I'm checking out my source information as it comes in. I'm checking the telemetry information so I can bring you the latest and greatest. And
telemetry. I love it.
Telemetry is just incoming data. It's just data that's coming in streaming, right? Like this stream. So what I would like to do as we count down, because we will cut right over, I'm going to keep this screen up so we can see when it comes, and then we can talk over what they're announcing. Because I think, you can easily switch over to their announcement if you want. The value that we provide is giving our comments and our analysis on what they announce, and that's what we're going to focus on. If you have any questions about what we're supposed to be getting announced, about cameras in general, about either one of us, or just whatever, go ahead and post them in the comment section.
I have a question for you, Simon, which is, does the A9 III affect Canon's R1 roadmap? Because obviously we have a lot of Canon and Sony shooters, and one comment was that the better this camera is, the more it pushes Canon, obviously, to innovate or at least release its technology earlier than it planned to. And with the R1, is our R1 fully baked and it's only in testing and there's nothing they can do to make it better? At this point, it's just finalizing when they're going to launch it, or is this still in development? What is the status of the R1 right now?
Well, and that's a good point. So the R1 is supposed to get a slow teaser starting in Q1 of 2024, which is just a couple of months away. It is coming out next year. We know this. Every single time the Summer Olympics are coming out, Canon refreshes their 1 series. As I said with the global shutter, with the Sony A9, no matter what you think about the global shutter, Sony's most likely solved that. And I'm going to say the same thing about the Canon EOS R1, regardless of what Sony does with the A9 III. I just know that Canon's going to deliver a camera that is going to be the master of everything, at least from their point of view, and is going to be highly competitive on the market. Now, do they have a global shutter? Well, it's supposed to be 45 megapixels. I don't know. Is it going to be a stack sensor? Well, it's going to be at least a stack sensor. And, I have a sense that this, because it's been 4 years in the making. We had the R5 come out in 2020, and usually the 1 series is just a little bit better than the 5 series. So I would look at the R5 as a baseline for this, but look at the R5 too as a baseline for this. I think it's going to be a very capable camera. Anybody buying the R1 isn't going to look at the A9 III and go like, that's way better. I think if you're a Sony customer, you're really looking to the Alpha 1 Mark II or the Alpha 1 II, and that's going to be more of a competitor to the R1. I don't see this being a better camera. I see this being as a different scenario-based camera aimed primarily at sports and fast action shooters. I see the R1 being aimed at that too, but it's going to be more broad, appeal more broadly.
So to get to your question as well as going back, but for going to this time, I don't think people are going to look at the R1 whenever it comes out and go, the A9 III is just much better. First of all, we don't know exactly, just like we don't fully know what's coming with the A9 III. But as you said, people are just going to look at them differently. Also, I don't know if me personally, I don't know if it's going to affect what happens with the R1, because the R1's already been developed. These things take years in development. So if we're going to start getting an announcement, it's pretty much done. It's just there's a lot of bug fixes and a lot of tune-ups at this point in time. So for me, it's more like it's already in the tan. So it's not like whatever Sony. It's like I think some people just think, oh, Sony drops this, so Canon has to now drop something like this with the R1. No. It's like, no, they don't. This is already set in motion. Whatever is going to come with whatever sensor that's going to come in the R1 has already been set. It's not going to change what Sony announces. That's not how these companies move. They build what they believe is where they are and what their ecosystem needs, and that's it. Sony just has a leg up above everyone because they've been in this space longer than any of them. So that's the only thing.
That's a really good point. You mentioned that these companies work on it for years, and so while there's been a bit of a feeling over the last few years that Sony's been taking it easy, well, it might just appear that way. It's just like Canon took a 10-year break and then hit hard with the R5 in 2020. So I think what we're seeing with Sony is they've been working on camera technology, and I think what we're going to see with the A9, I think we're going to see some of the benefits of that research and development. I'm really happy to see such incredible competition between and innovation between Canon, Sony, Nikon, and Panasonic. We're really starting to see some amazing things, and this benefits all of us to a huge degree, I think. Oh, one thing. I'm hearing a whole lot of noise in the background now because the kitchen's in full gear, and that's just behind this wall here. How is my audio? How noisy is it in the background?
I don't hear anything. But then again, maybe it's my hearing.
Nice. Okay, Sennheiser profiler. And I want to talk about this because I bought the Shure with my own money, which is more expensive than this by about $100. Very good microphone. But I had talked to Sennheiser previously because I said I saw one early preview of this, and I thought, wow, that looks impressive. If you can send me one, I'll use it for the entire year on my channel. And I'm probably going to use it next year too. They send it to me free, but I don't get any kickbacks or commission or anything like that. But I'm pretty impressed with how I don't have to do anything, and I can hear plates clamoring and clacking, and so that's really good. Yeah, $129 without the boom, $199 with. So if you're looking at doing any sort of meetings for the office or your channel, if you don't want to spend a lot of money, but you want something good, you've heard my stream, right? So, all right.
Does it have active noise canceling, Simon?
Yeah, well, I don't remember all the technologies that are in it, but there are various things. So it's kind of like a lavalier mic, whereas it focuses on the closest foot and based on where I'm talking into it right here. So I can get up really close. I want to be 6 to 8 inches in front of it. But there really aren't a lot of settings for me to bugger it up. And that's kind of nice too, because I do live streams sometimes. I can go 4 months. And then I'm trying to remember, how do I set everything up? And with Assura, you have to save your settings. You have to think a bit more, but it gives you a bit more. So I'm not saying this is better than the Assura. I'm just saying that for the quality it gives you for the price, it's terrific. So I believe in calling that out. I think it's only fair. So here we are, 17 minutes. 12 seconds left. We're almost there. Yes?
Oh, so the question came in. Because obviously the big thing with the A9 III is the global shutter. Aaron actually asked off the topic. It's like, why is nobody talking about the Zcam? And I wanted to quickly, because he was saying the Zcam Pro has global shutter. And I just want to quickly clarify, it does not. The Zcam F6 does not have a global shutter. They do have, I believe, a 5K option that does have a global shutter, and it's a Super 35 camera. But I kind of wanted to address Zcam, because it seems like nobody talks about Zcam, and that is a fair thing. I just think Zcam. There's just been some things with Zcams that they need to find ways to integrate more into certain softwares, like. For me, it's like if you can find a way to better integrate into DaVinci Resolve. A lot of their raw codecs are that they're not well integrated into the major NLEs, so they're hard. So you're really dealing with the ProRes, which is not bad. It's good ProRes. They make great cameras, good solid cameras. The image is not necessarily my thing, and personally, I'm not a fan of the image that the Zcam produce. But in terms of the cameras and what they produce and what they can do, if you do like the image, it's a really solid camera. I just think there's options that other people prefer and like what they are producing versus like what Zcam is offering, like Confinity, Blackmagic, and Sony, and even Canon.
Well, thank you for answering that. Let me take a look at the questions here. I was just looking to see if anything else has come through, and nothing. Oh, Craig. Good to see you, Craig. 24 megapixels absolutely has its advantages, just like 45 does. Yes, it's this should never be a spec war. It's always, as I like to say as an enterprise architect, it's not the requirements that matter. It's the outcomes you're trying to achieve. Focus on that. What is your vision? What are you trying to deliver? And then, your goals, objectives, and then your specs really is kind of one of the last thing you look at. So that's why I'm waiting. I always say this, no matter, even if we get full specs, I want to see what the manufacturer has to say, because that's going to give you a much better idea of why they did what they did. All right, let's see. Brian says, gaming fuel. I understand that, but I'll be using it as a video camera, well, a hybrid. And yeah, I'm really curious to see, because this at $4,500 might be a competitor to the Red Komodo, right? Sure, maybe it doesn't have 120 in 4K, and we don't know that 100% for sure now. But I think that could definitely give more life to this camera, because where else can you buy a video camera with a global shutter? 4K 60 still meets the needs of most of us. And even though I shoot 120, I don't do it all the time. I think it was maybe 5% of the video I shot, or 4% or 3% in 2022.
I don't know if it will compete with I don't honestly think it competes with the Red Komodo. The Red Komodo has a 16-bit linear readout, so it sees more depth and colors than what this camera is going to produce. Even though, just because it has a global shutter, but the Komodo, especially the Komodo X, it's designed for video. It has video ports. This is not a camera that's going to be, and that's sort of the problem with hybrid cameras. You gotta, people that are looking at a Komodo are not going to be looking at this camera.
Oh, no, I get that. But you know as well as I do that it's kind of like the guy who gets a Corvette engine and puts it in his Mustang. He goes, hey, I got just the specs of a Corvette in here. The Corvette guy goes, yeah, you don't have the handling, you don't have this. But that guy doesn't care, because he sees the performance limitations that he gets, not as limitations, but as something he otherwise could not have. And I think that's part of what goes on here. We see this with people with a Canon R5 justifying why it's better than any other camera, or the Sony A7C II is better than other cameras, or why the Lumix camera is better, right? We kind of latch on to certain things and go like, wow, I know I don't have SDI out. I know I don't have waveforms, vector scopes, and all this stuff, but they see something and go like, wow, it's got a global shutter. And then all of a sudden the creativity kicks in, thinking, okay, what can I do differently now that I've got this? How does my outcomes change? Just like when I got the R5, I didn't shoot 8K for almost a year. I didn't see the point to it until I did it for the first time, and I was like, oh, now I get it. Now I
get, to extent, when the hype and all the YouTubers come out and you got like 50 different videos talking about the global shutter, like this is absolutely game changing. But then about 3 months from now, I guarantee you some people are going to be like, yeah, the global shutter is great, but the A7S III still has a fast readout speed, and it ain't that, and I don't see that much of a difference. Only people, yes, you'll see it in like all the tech specs, but it's going to be like, it's not going to be that much difference in the terms of the day-to-day use cases that eventually, and that's what's going to get at the end of the time.
I hear you. I want to interrupt and then let you continue with this, but I met a local photographer a couple of times when I'm out shooting, and this was for Halloween. Glenn Rogers, he's in the Newmarket, Aurora area. He's a photographer, and I want everybody guess what camera he was shooting with, and you see if you can guess the lens. So we were at Halloween. It was around late at night. The last time was at an open house for the fire department. Guess what camera and lens he was shooting with. I'd like to see who can guess.
Kodak.
No, it wasn't an Instamac. Come on, take a serious guess. Let's try to get the brand first. Let's all work together. Let's see if we can get the brand. Stop the FOMO. Can you guess?
I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm reading the chat and I'm looking at the argument. Now they're saying this whole limited to 24 megapixel for global shutter is pointless because it's so good already. Why do you need global shutter? Back to what you were saying. And I was like, that's very interesting. Now they're not even excited for that.
Well, that's why this is relevant, right? So think of the most popular cameras by market share, or the most popular brand. So what camera do you think he was shooting with?
Sony,
Not Sony?
Canon.
Yes, Canon. Now, I'm going to tell you it's not a mirrorless camera. Take a guess at what he was shooting with.
1DX.
Nope. 5D Mark IV. Camera that came out in 2016. He's still using it today for his business. And he gets what he needs. He had the 15 to 35 on there, EF. And so when I see some of these comments that say, it's already good enough. Yes, for the person who said that, it is already good enough. For Glenn Rogers, a 10-year-old camera or 8-year-old camera is good enough for what he needs, right? And so it's not that when we see these comments saying it's good enough for that person. It doesn't mean it's good enough for everybody, although sometimes that's what people are trying to say. It's good enough for a certain amount of people. So yes, 1D, you guessed Nikon, you guessed 7D, all good cameras. But yeah, it was the 5D Mark IV. And he saw my R5 and I told him a few things. And when I was shooting, because it was dark, and I showed him, I was shooting with a 50mm f1.2 and he saw like, oh my God, the low light performance from there is incredible, just working off ambient light. And so he's thinking, oh, maybe the R5. But for his business, he doesn't have to spend all that extra money, $6,000 for the Canon R5. And then the R5 is another, what, $4,000, $3,500 Canadian. So I hear what people are saying. And the thing to remember is if you're shooting for Sports Illustrated, you're shooting for any magazine, you're shooting for print, you're shooting for the wire services or even television, if you have the ability to go and let's say it's a really heavy rainy day, it's on the football field, it's coming down like crazy, and you're able to shoot at 1/2000th of a second at ISO 1600 and get the play on the field locked on without any blur, without any missed focus, you're the one who's going to sell your prints. And so I think this is what this is going for, is the people who need the best of the best, the fastest of the fastest. For those of us on here saying that, hey, it's already good enough, that's a larger part of the market. And that's why I think we see the R3 and the A9 as very specialty cameras dealing with sports and fast action. Because even today, if you're shooting motorsports, F1, or any of that sort of stuff, they're not fast enough. And that rolling shutter can get a little bit in the way. And if you've got a better picture where your basketball is perfectly round, well, then guess what? That previous photo that looked good enough, it no longer is and won't get picked.
Yeah, no, as I said, I've been saying, like, this is more of a bigger deal for photos. I like, in terms of global shutter, yeah, for photos, it's going to be, especially in like fast action sports, this is a huge deal. I'm just saying in terms of the video, I'm just saying from a video, because I'm coming from a cinematography and a filmmaking standpoint, it's not as big of a deal. And in terms of, because obviously nobody's looking at the Komodo for taking photos. I mean, you technically can do it, but nobody's going to a Komodo for trying to take stills for like the Philadelphia Eagles or anything like that. We're going to go with a photo camera. You're going to go with the gear that makes sense, and that's what I was talking about in relation to the Komodo. And in terms of filmmaking, it's a great thing to have, and it helps in certain ways, but it's not. Once you hit a certain point of readout speed, it really only matters if you have a very slow readout speed, like a lot of the Panasonic's cameras, especially the S line of Panasonic cameras, which I really, really, really hope Panasonic improves whenever they come out with the S1H2 and the BS1H2, and then a couple other cameras. But as long as it's like once you start getting to the 10 milliseconds and under, the benefits of a global shutter starts to nullify very, very rapidly, depending on what you do in terms of a video. Photos is a whole different ball.
Okay, so this is why I have guests like James Jackson on all the time, because he is a DP, director of photography. He's a videographer, a filmmaker. He does this day in and day out. And please go ahead and visit his channel just briefly. Subscribe. Same with Stop the FOMO. You know, James has been on my channel for live streams more than anybody else, and he doesn't get paid for this. I don't get paid unless you use my pre-order links, but please do that, because when he comes off a video and says, hey, I just got 60 subscribers, he's over the moon, and I would like to deliver that to him today. Although with 254 concurrent. That might be tough to get 60 this time, James. But we're 5 minutes ahead. And one thing these guys are going to do is as the announcement comes and as I'm talking to you, they're going to be searching the web. They're going to be finding key bits of information for you. And then they're going to come in and say, Simon, I just heard that Gordon Langer said this or so-and-so said this. So what you're going to be getting is once the announcement hit 5 minutes now, 5 minutes, we're going to start to provide you with that live analysis as it comes. And I'm pretty excited by this. Look, last week we had a whole bunch of Canon lenses, and I didn't expect that would be such a big deal until 2 days before. I've never done a live stream on lenses, and we had over 500 people concurrent watching. And, well, today's news from Canon Rumors, well, those lenses are already now on Canon's short list that they can no longer make enough of these things already. They haven't even started shipping. They're still on pre-orders. So, thank you guys. James, Stop the FOMO. Really appreciate you two being here. I don't need more than you guys to really carry on a good conversation. It's very much appreciated. And I know everybody out there appreciates you as guests on the panel as well.
And we appreciate you. FOMO and Simon, I would like you, because Francisco actually asked a really good question. I would love your thoughts on this. Why don't we always get a fan with every camera? With the right speeds going up like crazy and no good refrigeration system is a problem. He brings up the R6 and the R5. I would love you guys' thoughts on that. It's like, why don't we get fans? I have an idea, but I would love to hear from you guys.
That's my problem. Yeah, I was just going to say, this is why I only buy FX cameras now, because my A1 and my A7 IV, if I shoot over 79 degrees Fahrenheit, it's just, after 20 minutes, it overheats every single time. I mean, I don't always have conditions where it's at 70 degrees or less, which apparently is what you need to avoid it. I'm in a room, got lots of TVs, it hits 79 degrees, 10, 15 minutes in, it just shuts down, overheating. But my FX cameras, no problem, because internal fan, right? So this is, I think they should all have internal fans. I guess it's more expensive, but the FX30 in that same body is now 1,800. I mean, there's no, other than noise, but I don't hear anything from the fan. So there is no reason beyond cost not to include a fan for video-centric cameras, for sure.
Very good question. So I will say this. For many cameras that do suffer from overheating, there are accessories you can purchase and bolt on. One of the reasons is cost. A lot of companies still see their stills hybrid cameras as for photographers first, and that's where they're catering it to. But I also shoot with a Canon R5, and you can see we've been going for how many hours here, plus I had a half an hour setup time. Whether I do 4K, 8K, the camera never overheats. Whether it's 70 degrees, 80 degrees, the camera never overheats. That's after firmware 1.6. So it depends on what you're shooting with. I think we've seen it with certain cameras like the S1H. If they're more video-centric, but if they're stills hybrid focused, then you're not going to see that, because you're just going to hear photographers rant even more about, why are you putting this stuff in there that makes the cost higher when we don't need it for what we do? So there's so many things going on there, but a very good question. We're down to 2 minutes. We're down to 2 minutes, guys. Here we go. I can see the excitement on your face, Stop the FOMO. Look at that excitement.
I just like countdowns in general. I'll count down anything.
Yeah, I'm staring at the countdown like a cow in a field.
I can't believe we got a countdown to a countdown. I'm still stuck on that.
That was great.
28 half minutes ago. I'm like, did we really just set up a countdown to go into a countdown?
Yes, we did. Yep. And I bet you once we hit that 0-0, they'll do another 2-minute countdown. It's like watching the shuttle
they'll have
go
the music intro, right? You got to have that intro countdown.
Well, I think they already have the music. Let me see what happens if I turn this on. And now let's see if I turn it on with... You guys can't hear that, right?
Yeah. They kind of teased a little bit at the stage, like, I guess the venue that they're at. Where they announced it. There was like a little bit of it.
Okay, I'm going to turn that off because it's so distracting I can't hear myself. So what we're going to do, we're just going to watch it with you here. We've got 283 people watching, As the information comes out, we're going to talk about it, why it's relevant. And here we are. Now, what are they going to start with first? I hope they don't start with a software update. And the A1, we might get a firmware update. We're supposed to get that as well, right?
It better.
Yeah, start with the A93 though. Start with the A93. Here we go. Are we going to have another 2-minute countdown? And thank you for the thumbs down. Whether you thumbs down or thumbs up, they're all interactions and they all feed that YouTube formula. Thank you very much for tuning in. Here we are, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, and if you want a thumbs down, do it twice.
Please do.
If you really feel like it, hit that thumbs down twice.
There we go. So here we are. Liam, you need to go to school. I'm working.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right, so we got a guy on the stage here. It's Neil. I don't see any other information in there. Let's just make this part bigger. Oh, so we have captions. Oh, there's the English. Good. So we got the captions as well in the English. So yeah, they are doing this at Sony Creative Space. So that's why you see them talking about the community. This is Sony Creative Space 2023. I would love to be there, but you know, I've got so many. I'm lucky to get the time off today. I just asked for it off yesterday. I was lucky they granted it. So I really appreciate the support I got from the office. So yeah, they're just talking about Creative Space. You can see the photos there. Have you guys ever been to Sony Creative Space in New York City?
I have not.
No. Okay, now my family's getting ready. Coats are going on, doors, dogs, everything. How annoying has been the background noise throughout this morning as they're getting together, getting ready?
Honestly, it's not. Honestly, I hesitate. I mean, my daughter was just like coming down and just wanted to tell me that she's going to see her friend. I'm like, okay, I'm live streaming. So
it's awesome, isn't it?
It's part of this. It's family. It's family.
No,
man.
it is, and most of us here, I can tell from the demographics, we're all about family, and we make things work. But the technology, the audio, that it's able to take the background noise and really drop it down. Because for me, I hear it, it's like it's painful. So here we are. They got an alpha on the screen here. We've been excited for this day to come, so very happy. So I get a sense they're going to be happy of what they're going to announce here. What have they got coming, guys? Any predictions?
Well, it's confusing to see a big YouTuber like Casey there because the A93, if it's a sports photographer's camera, clearly not not for him. So I'm getting mixed messages with the people they invited there. So I don't know what to expect, honestly.
They invited me, but I couldn't make it. No, they didn't invite me. But one thing I'll say for Sony is I don't want to mention what it was, but for content creators, they offer pretty significant discounts. Canon, on the other hand, go talk to one of our retailers. Very different. But they probably don't like me because I talk rumors, right? So they probably have a love-hate.
Sony you had a scheduling conflict. It's like, sorry, Sony, I had a scheduling conflict.
All right, so let's see what Adorama just added the 300 millimeter. So pre-order links are available, guys. If you want to use my links down below, the smart pre-order links. Let's take a look. Stop the FOMO. Do you want to see what else they have on Adorama or B&H? So my pre-order links, if you use them, they're going to get you the stuff a whole lot quicker. That's really awesome. Thank you very much for telling us that, Central. I love this community. It's awesome. 10th anniversary, yes, come on. This is awesome stuff. All right, so let me just, see, I can't switch over because then you miss out on the presentation. I do like doing this better because
nobody's posted it. So far, nobody's posted anything yet. So
no, okay. Well,
maybe
somebody might have been just
of the presentation, and then that's where everybody drops theirs.
Okay, so I'm going to take a look on this computer, Adorama. I don't see. So let's do Sony 300.
Because B8H hasn't even updated their page.
No, it might have just been sometimes you'll see this. It'll glitch. You'll see something come on and then it goes away. With the Canon lenses last week for about 5 or 10 minutes, people had trouble. The system was crashing because there were so many orders. So normally Sony USA delays by 24 hours, but definitely take those pre-order links in the description, put them in your browser, refresh them every so often because I think the A93 is going to be very popular and you'll at least get in the queue a little bit quicker than anybody else. So yeah, the E-mount, from a Canon perspective, this is a big deal because they've got hundreds of lenses. They have Sigma and Tamron, one mount to rule them all. And I think this is working so very, very well for Sony and their customers. You have that open mount, although there is rumors, again, by Sony Alpha rumors, that by the end of the year, Canon will be doing the same thing, that Sigma will be coming on board. There has been some noise. So again, more competition, the better.
Yeah, I mean, look, Canon's still, like, I know Canon's slowly going to print it, and it'll water out. I'm glad they are. I think Canon just wanted to sort of have more focus on their lenses, and because that, like, recently, that obviously the 28 to 24 to 105 f2.8 has been the talk of the town, and Canon's always pushing innovation with their cameras. I mean, not the cameras, the lenses.
Did you see that slide? They're starting to focus A1 and A7S3. So this one's going to fall right in the middle. What are they trying to highlight the attention to? They're talking about stills and movies, so there's a balance between the two. They're talking about workflow enhancement and proof of authenticity, the CP2PA format support. These are things that they're trying to draw our attention to, because now they're starting to frame the discussion. Everything here is framing the discussion for what is coming next. This is important. The ultimate hybrid camera. So I'm looking on YouTube. Nothing has really come yet. So I'm making sure that you guys have the latest and the greatest. Oh, here we go. The world's lightest 300 millimeter f2.8. f2.8 GMOSS, corner to corner sharpness. That's a nice lens. We just need a camera to apply it to, don't we? We just need a camera.
Yeah. If only there was a camera that could go super fast and didn't have any rolling shutter.
What camera could do that?
Yes.
I'm sure this gentleman here is going to provide us with an answer to that. Oh, is that
Also lens?
He's just teasing us some more. I was shooting last year with my 100 to 500 on the water, and I got to tell you, the stabilization in these types of lenses, like the 300 millimeter, it's amazing. It's not like you're on a tripod. It's like you're shooting with a really good camera. You do have the frame move a little bit, but not enough to distract you. It's like the jerkiness of a camera transforms into a sort of a smooth rollingness, and where you can get not just incredible stills, which is what they're focusing on here, but incredible video as well. Very, very, these lenses aren't cheap, but they produce incredible results. I just wonder what the price is going to be.
1,470 grams. That's actually, I wasn't expecting it to be that light.
Yeah, that's 1.4 kilograms, so 2.2 pounds to the kilogram, so force about 5-6 pounds. If I'm trying to think while I talk, it's not easy. But yeah, 2.2 pounds to the kilogram. And of course these look good. And what you should be looking for is any sign of where you would normally see rolling shutter, because I bet you that camera there.
So about 3.2 pounds.
1.4. Yeah, sorry, I went double. You're right. I did 2.2 twice. I'm trying to figure out what camera they're shooting with. I'm looking for clues. Never look at what they want you to see in these videos. Always look off to the side. It's like an illusionist. You don't want to look where they want you to look. There we go. So, Andrea Pizzani, for those who say this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, look, he got it right once again. At least for the lens. Let's see if we can go for a 3-fer. Oh, look at that alpha. Come on, they're teasing us like crazy, aren't they? I could say my presentation is now over, and please enjoy your day. And we'd all kill you if you did. Not literally, but we'd be very upset with you. Here we go.
Another new globe. Yes, it's global shutter. We get it. We get it.
Throw the alpha up there again. Never-ending challenge. Look, it's like a storybook. You can tell these guys have a movie company, can't you? Oh, the big tease. Here we go. He was using the A1.
A9.
Look at that. That looks really good. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I look at this and it has all the signs of a global shutter. A9, here we go. Mark III. They do call it a Mark III. I was schooled. They say, you call it the A9 III. You don't call it the Mark III. But they, in their own presentation, call it a Mark III. So from now on, I'm just going to use Mark III. Full frame global shutter confirmed. Sony Alpha Rumors. Andrea Pizzani is correct once again. Let's take a look at this. So they're going to explain to you how rolling shutter works, and we covered that off earlier. Blackout free at, I think that's 120 frames per second. Let's bring it in a bit more.
Yeah, it's 120 frames per second blackout. Trying to speed up to 1/80,000 of a second.
That's really good.
Flash sync at all shutter speeds.
Previously, it used a lot of cameras, high-end cameras, it's 1/64 thousandths of a second, so 1/80 thousandths of a second. That's definitely improved. New ergonomic design, Sony Alpha Rumors and the camera insider got that correct. Always love it when they're improving on the ergonomics. So sharp look at that. I wish they could just stay on these photos a little bit longer. Look at that bird.
Yeah. Look, I was never going to say it's going to be a big step for photos. The video is always just like, okay, what you doing here? To me, what's going to until people start really changing in terms of formats, until I see if they come out and say, hey, you'll be able to shoot the entire 3.2 sensor in video, okay, you got me interested.
Yep. So obviously no distortion. And we saw that in the photos. Whenever you see, hockey's great because you see so much debris being shot up really fast. You see people moving really fast. It's like they just froze time. So yeah, you can definitely see the benefits there. 120 frames per second, yes, but at what resolution? Is that 24 megapixels? EVF is also 120 frames per second. 1/16,000th of a second during high-speed continuous. Yeah. So that's interesting.
You notice they made it a little bit smaller, other than that bullet point.
Yeah. Flash sync speed, that's always important. And no surprises that that's there. Okay, let's see what other specs we have here. And I'm trying to refresh on B&H at the same time to see if we have any specs page to bring you any other information. I'm not seeing anything. A9 III.
No, they just have the Sony cover thing.
Yeah, no, I see that too. But I'm not surprised. Sony USA. See, if you're in Europe, if you're in Asia, you can probably pre-order the Sony A9 III right now. But if you're in North America, for whatever reason, Sony USA believes in us waiting 24 hours.
And they show it. Now they're showing the camera.
Look at the smile on his face. He's so happy with that camera, and he should be. I feel like I'm one of those sports announcers, presenters talking about these guys as they do their sports. They're very happy with that camera. They know they've got a camera that's up there or better than the R3.
So this is a photography camera, not one mention of any video specs at all.
Are we surprised?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But, right? So it's not even a hybrid.
Well, my guess is they're going to have different people talk about it. So now it's like...
true.
They're probably going to have, let's bring the filmmaker in to talk about the video and why the video is so amazing.
You know what? Nikon did it best when they did the Z8. They did a full day of this photographer coming in, this videographer coming in, all day long doing a dog and pony show, and I think it was terrific. And thank you, Kathy, and everybody else in the comments who's also doing research and bringing it back to us as well. I do appreciate this. One of the things I set out to do as a goal with this channel was to create a community, which is why I do these live streams. I used to do Q&A sessions, but I found that where you guys really wanted me to present was as we transition from those news and rumors over to the actual reviews. And so I will kind of fade into the background once Gordon Lang, Petapixel, and everybody else will come out with their reviews. But this is a good way to sort of transition, to go live and give you our thoughts, with a terrific guest panel as well to give you different viewpoints. 120 frames per second raw. We didn't see that yet unless I was talking over something. So they're giving us more information. 24.6 megapixels actually, so why don't they say 25 and round up? Image sensor, yeah, okay.
They have to, I think there's like certain guidelines whenever you're making a camera that you can't overstate the resolution of a sensor.
Yeah, that's probably what they're doing. So in my view, it's a 25 megapixel sensor at 24.6, but I don't have to follow the same rules. I believe in rounding up after 0.5 or at 0.5. Okay, ISO. So let's see what the ISO is going to be. I'm curious to know if they're using the same image sensor. They've probably got the AI processing chip in there as well. The amount of, and of course, keep in mind here, they haven't talked about heat, because doing this, especially if you're shooting at 120 frames per second, is going to generate an awful lot of heat.
And those cards will generate heat too.
What cards are they going to get? CFA or CFB? Type or Gen 3, Gen 4?
My guess is it's still A. There's probably not going to still be a whole, unless this is the start of the new of going to Type B. But
and you know what?
That may just be in their higher ends, like the Venice and the Burano, that, and maybe that you'll only see Type B in like the FX9 II, and maybe even potentially the FX6 II.
Well, the CF Express Association has tossed them a bone here. As long as they can handle the throughput, CF Express Type A can now handle CF Express Type B speeds. Okay, so now the Advanced Bions XR processor can handle 8 times more processing power. Dual chips. Really impressive there. So it's got a lot of power on the image processor side as well. So we've got it on the sensor, we got it on the processor, we need it on the bus, and we need it on the storage. 120 frames per second. Come on. They must have done something with storage here. 6 gigabytes, not bits per second, guys. 6 gigabytes per second. They're going to have some new storage system. 14-bit RAW. Sony Alpha Rumors got that correct as well. 192 frames up to 6 gigabytes per second. I'm predicting some new storage. I can't imagine they're just going to go with CF Express Type A. They could.
I'll go and say they'll keep it to CF Express Type A. I'll just to be argumentative.
It's so Sony though to do that. And with Gen 4, they can get 1.5 gigabytes per second. They have cards out there now.
Betamax all over again, right? It's just very obstinate.
Well, who isn't though? Canon was obstinate with several things too, right? You know, they all have their each company you can talk about and want to strangle them because of like, oh, give me a firmware update, do this, do that, or remove the 30-minute record limit. Oh, come on, move to face detect autofocus system, right? They all have something. That's a pretty impressive timing setting too. Look at that bird. I just love how it just looks so different. Yeah, that is pre-capture.
I'm gonna chill for a while because it's clear. It's like they're obviously everybody knows they want to know about the video, so they're just gonna really wait till the end. They're gonna stretch this out. So I'm gonna just kick back for a minute.
Yep, Kevin says it's going to cost $25. I think you're wrong, Kevin. Just I don't even think shipping is going to be $25 on this. But hey,
Kevin may be onto something.
He could.
He's got some insight.
And John Ishii, photojournalist, is in the audience with us. Okay, what are they saying here? So I love when they show shots like this because it really gives us an idea. Speed boost. Talking about a bit more. So John, what do you think as a photojournalist? Your thoughts on this camera? I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to have this one pre-ordered.
Well, John's saying 25 megapixels is not enough.
That's what he's saying. More. And this guy has decades of experience. He worked for the Associated Press, if I remember correctly. He still believes it needs to have a shutter. All right, let's move along. They're drawing this out a little bit. It's exciting. And look, we're holding our audience here, guys, 275 concurrent viewers. So I think this is a good way of doing it is we keep the presentation up. We talk over it. We have the captions on so people can actually understand what's being said. Todders said $5,500. That is going to definitely be a few dollars. Continue shooting at 120 frames per second at what megapixel rate?
They were posting it was $4,500 in the specs in Japan. So somewhere between 45 and 55, right?
Sony Alpha Rumors has also been saying 4,500. They said between 4,000 and 5,000 mid-priced. So since he's got so much right, I'm gonna bet it's gonna be around 4,500. All right, so I just saw something about video, but I missed it. Yeah, hockey's a great way to showcase this. Oh, let's close that screen.
Like I know the global shutter, but I just say just for film, I really hope there's more to that, because I'll be honest, I'll be looking at something like the GFX 100 a second, which is a medium format camera. It doesn't have nearly the global shutter, but the options and what it can do for video is is beyond a lot of things that even full frame cameras can do. So as a filmmaker, I would right now lean towards that, but I am curious to see what Sony would deliver. Um,
Well, just look at the R3 and what it can do with video. While it's not its primary use case, it does 6K RAW. And when it came out, 6K RAW was a big deal. It does very well. The eye-controlled autofocus is useful as well. So it has very good video. You could use the R3 just as a video camera. But at $6,000 when it came out, it was a tough justification. Now it's $1,000 less. So let's see what happens after Sony announces this, what happens to the price of the R3, and then it's going to be attacked on the top by the R1. So yes,
yeah,
flash sync.
yeah, true. But both Sony and Canon have the same problems. They don't let you use the whole sensor. Whereas Fuji, even though technically they don't, for like the GFX 100, they don't let you use it, but you can shoot 3.2 on a full frame. You can shoot 3.2 full frame. They actually have a mode that lets you shoot full frame 4.3, which is not even possible on any full frame camera. And then on their APS-Cs, you can shoot the whole sensor, 3x2 sensor. So, which gives you a lot more options in terms of framing, compositions, anamorphic options, and that to me, as a DP, as someone who looks at things visually, that is appealing to me more so than a global shutter sensor and higher resolution. Those are all great, but give me the option to really go crazy with creativity.
Take a look at what John said. I think you'll all agree with this here. But shooting sports, you shoot the emotions of winning and losing, and you got to catch those emotions on players' faces. So with this speed, this allows you to do that. Although he says that the resolution isn't high enough. That's very interesting here. I wonder how others view this.
So what's interesting is
okay,
what John was saying is
dedicated AI processing unit. So as expected, but notice how they've got a few more things on here. They're basic. The only thing they're not tracking is UFOs and I believe boats. Sorry, go ahead, FOMO.
Oh, I was just saying they're using A1, the A1, because of its high megapixel count. Would this cause them to switch from the A1 to the A9? And I think the A9 is competing with itself. So that's an interesting point. Would you drop your megapixel count by more than half or by half?
Yeah, and JG said something very well here. It's software over hardware. And once you put the chips in there, it very much is all about the software. The software is how these capabilities are utilized. If you just look at the chip, all the chip does is you put a signal into the chip, you put a voltage in based on the bus speed, and then it'll send out something. It's the programmer, it's the software, the firmware that really allows you to do what it's able to do. Chips by themselves are pretty boring. Oh, the dog's back again. That's great. Yeah. No, you can take him away now. I appreciate him. That's good. Thank you. No, please. I guess this is a true dog and pony show today. We just don't have the pony. All right, so autofocus system, 95% coverage, because we round down, right? 759 points, and precision to minus 5 EV. It's pretty good. Face detect, obviously. John says, the F1 starting grid, you've got one chance to get a tight shot. Yeah, so there's a perfect example of where having a larger resolution will help, because you absolutely have to, you get one chance and one chance only.
I guess they're like, hey, that's why we made the 300 zoom. Hey, you get closer now. Yeah. So why are you worried about resolution? Just get close. Just get a longer focal throw.
Thanks, Ryan. He is a cute dog. Oh, I'm losing my voice. You guys might have to start talking more because I'm going to start losing it soon. I'm going to be sounding like Bob
So,
Dylan on a bender.
so it's supposed to be 8 stops of stabilization
Oh,
with
here we go.
lens. So that's
6K
cool.
over sample, 4K 60, 4K 120 without cropping. There we go. One thing Sony Alpha Rumors got incorrect. 4K 120, that is big here. 10-bit
16-bit
422.
raw output. 16-bit raw output where no recorder can actually record 16-bit raw. I don't know why Sony keeps. I get it, like, okay, you're saying it's capable of doing it, but there's no device that's capable of capturing 16-bit raw. So why are we keep pushing this marketing narrative that no one can actually use? Just say it shoots 12-bit raw out with the.
This is so. As a videographer, video shooter, I like these specs. Okay, it's not 8K, but so what? 6K over sample 4K does provide you really good detail, and it's 6K over sample 4K up to 60 frames per second. 4K
No
120 without full sensor, but without cropping. That is a big deal.
No, it's definitely
Global
good.
shutter?
It's good. It's good.
Do you want this camera?
Yeah. No.
No.
Oh, two no's. I'm curious. I just want to get my hands on it.
And like
Why
I said,
no?
Kevin, let me respond to Kevin. Like I said, it says 16-bit raw output. It doesn't matter. There's no device that can capture 16-bit raw. No Atomos can do it. The Sony A7S3 can put out 16-bit raw, but there's nothing that can do it. The reason why is it's like it's very baseline in terms of video for me. Like 10-bit all-eye internal, there's so many other cameras that could offer that internally. There is no internal raw recording option, which I think would have been nice to have. You got cameras like Blackmagic now has a full frame camera that you shoot 12-bit raw internally. The Ursa 12K, which is just, if this is $4,500 or $5,000, it's not that far off from the Ursa 12K. That has a great Rolex shutter. It shoots 8K. You could shoot. Yes, it shoots 12K, but you can shoot 8K or 4K in all over samples from the 12K in RAW, and it's 16-bit linear, and it has an incredible fast readout speed, and it has all the professional video inputs.
And speaking of fast readout speed, look at the EVF and the LCD. First of all, it's got that 4-axis LCD that we saw in the A7R5. Really, really good. We can see up to 240 frames per second in the EVF. So I'm not really surprised that Sony brought it there, but it's nice to see that they definitely did bring that 4-axis LCD.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap up real quick, and I would love to see why FOMO, you said no. But the main thing is based on the price that this thing is about to come out, there's just so many options of a hybrid camera that is, to me, has better video options for me. Because once you start getting to once you start eking towards $5,000, now you're actually competing with actual cinema cameras. You're competing with the FX3, which has built-in NDs. You're competing with the C70, which I'm filming on right now, that has built-in NDs and professional audios. And I bring up the Ursa Mini Pro 12K. You got Confinities. You're dealing with actual professional, actual video cameras that are better video. So and in terms of a 24 megapixel sensor, I'd go something like an A7 III.
There we go. Price $6,000 for the spring of 2024.
$6,000. Yeah.
Who called it?
Oh, wow.
So why are they announcing it now when it's not coming out till March at the no, spring means the end of March. So we're not going to get this for like 4 or 5 months.
They're predicting inflation, Simon. Inflation is going to be, so it'll be 6,000.
No, I'm not harped on the price because that's R3 price, right? The R3 came out at 6,000 and is now for about 5,000. But it's available spring 2024. That means March 21st, 22nd, 23rd, or later, all the way up until almost May or June. So why announce it now if it's not coming out for 3 or 4 months? That is really interesting. That surprises me.
Do they, I mean, is Sony normally announcing it? What is their announcement window between launch and release normally?
Usually, well, the Nikon Z8, they announce it 2 weeks later. And you could pre-order that same time and it shipped 2 weeks later.
Okay.
These Canon lenses that were announced last week, they're shipping second week of December.
Oh, I know. Saving up. You gotta have 4 months to save $6,000, right?
This is crazy. I've never seen a development. Now, granted, this to me is more of a development announcement, but it's really nicely done. I like the presentation and all that, but to announce it now for a spring. So what does that tell you? If an FX camera is coming out or an A1 camera is coming out, it's probably going to happen in the second half at the way we're going.
Yeah.
The only thing that shocks me here is the when it's going to be available. And was that sorry? It's available in spring. No, take the dog away. He's going to hit the microphone and start eating cables.
Well, this tells me how expensive global shutter is. I mean, I think a lot of that pricing has to do with that sensor. It's not a cheap sensor.
No. And I like the video specs, but you see that price tells you that this is definitely aimed around that R3 spot. Canon kind of paved the way saying, hey, we'll give you a $6,000 camera that does these things. And Sony says, yeah, okay, we'll take that $6,000, but we're going to do something a little bit better. And
Well,
while we're talking about saying you both said no, and you said no from a video point of view, I still want to bring it back and look at this from a stills point of view. And, is it a no from a stills point of view? Because John Ishii says, as a photojournalist, as a sports photographer, he doesn't think that 24.6 megapixels is enough. Stop the FOMO. Give you a chance to comment in on it.
oh, well, because I'm paying for if I only use it for video, which is all of my cameras, I never use the snapshot. To enable stills, I never touch that. I use my iPhone, right? So for me, I'm paying for so many features that I would leave on the table that I would never touch, like the OLED EVF, like even the global shutter to a certain degree. I'm paying so much more for things that I don't need, and I can't justify that premium for myself because I'm leaving all the important specs on the table that I don't touch.
Yeah.
So for this camera, it's a waste for me. The prices, I see the sensor's very nice sensor. I get it. But if that sensor was optimized for an FX blank, FX1, FX6, whatever, then that's different. But it's optimized for photo shooters with the first 5 minutes of the 10 minutes of the presentation demonstrating exactly what the designed use case is for, right? So, I mean, it's interesting. And I'm excited about the sensor. What can they do with it if they optimize the software for video? Push
Yeah.
that hard to see what happens. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. And
I will.
I just
I
want
will
to go
say
back to what I said with the R3 when it came out. For me, it's not a camera that works for me because I'm not a sports shooter, not a fast action shooter. And so that's why it doesn't appeal to me. I think when it comes to sports and fast action photography, this camera certainly hits. And I think it does very good for video at that point too. And while the global shutter isn't cheap, this is the same price as the R3 when it came out with a stacked sensor. So I'm really curious to see the reviews. I don't know if we're going to have many reviews from the community because, well, if it's not coming out, and there's nothing in terms of YouTube, there's nothing coming out till spring of 2024. That's the only thing I find really funny here. It's like, come on, guys, throw us a bone. Why make us wait so long? So I think it's a terrific camera. I think when I first covered this over the past couple of weeks, I wasn't impressed with the leak specs, but from now what I see, it looks like a solid camera. But the one thing I'm still waiting to see, guys, I'm holding out, I want to see what kind of storage this thing has. And so far, I haven't seen that. Waiting for the pin to drop.
I'm telling you, I guarantee they're still using Type A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be Type A. I'm still holding to that. For me,
I have some news. Pre-orders will be tomorrow, guys. So typical Sony. I just got confirmation from my source that pre-orders will be available tomorrow. I'll send out a tweet at that point. But if you still want to hold on to my links down below and use them, put them in your browser, hit refresh. I don't know what time. I would assume I would check at 9. If I find out the time, I'll let you know. Let me just see if I can find out what time. What
Yeah.
time?
Well, while you're looking for that, I'll just say this. I think, look, this is clearly just targeted to a very, very specific group, of people. That I, and again, for people who make a living, and you got the you got the business, and you got the income, and you're going there, you'll look at and you'll consider this camera, if you see that it's an improvement. But cameras like these are a little bit harder to sell, and if you can chime in, FOMO or Simon, you agree, because if you're talking about going to an RT, you're talking about a group of people who have an entire ecosystem that have already, the people that this camera is targeting, they're people that already have an entire ecosystem lined up, an ecosystem they're used to, an ecosystem that works. Yeah, you're throwing out this 300 million, but if I'm someone, because we've been comparing this to the R3, if I'm shooting on the R3, am I really going to switch out my entire lineup, my entire ecosystem that I'm used to? I know as a photographer who I get paid thousands of dollars, because that's what this camera is for. Am I going to throw away my entire ecosystem for this? And especially since the R5 still has a mechanical shutter. It may not be fast, but if I'm still getting paid and I'm getting the shots, you can get the milliseconds, and you could burn through half a terabyte so like looking at 1,000 pictures if you want to. And there's some people that will do that.
I don't think that you would take the R5. It's like John would say, knife to a gunfight. You're going to be looking at the R1, the A9 III, or the A1 II if it comes out. But Sony Alpha Rumors said it's not coming out next year. We don't have the exact confirmation yet, but I'm told that 10 a.m. is the most likely time for the pre-orders, guys. So again, I will tweet it out. Please use my links down below. It would be much appreciated if you do. When I look at this, I keep looking back to a lot of what John says, because John is not a Canon person. He shoots with everything. This guy has every camera. As soon as it comes out, he buys it. And he thinks that Canon's going to dominate at Paris, and I think he's referring to the R1. I don't know. I'm not going to make a bold statement like that because we know very little about the R1. We have a lot of noise. But, it depends on what they're able to do, because if 24.6 megapixels, I'm hearing from a few people that are in the field, it's a little bit lower than what they would like. They'd rather see 33 or 30 megapixels. So I'm really curious to see what Canon does. And this is kind of good for Canon, because they go like, oh, we don't have to worry about our corporate spies. Not saying they have any, but now they know what Sony's got under their sleeves. And while they're not going to probably change the fabrication on the chips, although if you fabricate your own chips, you can, they're probably already producing these chips. What they can change is software. So I'm really, really curious to see once we start getting leaked information on the R1, which I expect to start very soon. I will let you guys know. So don't forget to subscribe and follow me on X, because I love this stuff as much as you do. So does Stop the FOMO. So does James Jackson. We're trying to find as much information as we can here in terms of other capabilities, but we don't have the full specs. I'm checking B&H and Adorama. For once it appears, then we can at least look at some of the other details. We want to dig deep. We want to find out storage. We want to find out about other shooting modes, ISO ranges. We want to take a look at 120 frames per second. Is that full sensor? Does it have an open gate, as James Jackson was talking about before? RAW is nice, but open gate is really nice as well. Wow. Come on, Sony. Lift the embargo.
Well, the storage will be interesting if they're sticking with CFX A.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be a total miss. Although at this point, nobody has announced any CF Express Type A cards that are Gen 4. Gen 3 isn't fast enough in my view, not for a camera like this. It needs to be at least Gen 4. But Gen 4 Type A gives you the same speeds of Gen 3 Type B, which is you're looking at right now currently on the market a maximum speed of Gen 3 cards of 1.48 gigabytes per second with Angelbird. So that is enough to at least push out 20 frames per second, lossless RAW at 45 megapixels. So,
Yeah.
and they said
No, go ahead.
192. So if they got a buffer in there, they can certainly make Type A cards work as long as they're Gen 4 cards available.
My concern is if look, yeah, you can make Type A's fast if it's Gen 4, but that also means that's a lot more heat that the camera has to work to dissipate as
Mm-hmm.
well. And again, that's going to be a big thing of trying to write all that information. Um, and and it seems like the 6K is only oversampling up to 60 frames per second, which I'm not mad. I think that's solid. That's good.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the technology going to be used for the 120 4K as well? So those are also other questions.
Yeah, they said it was uncropped, which, okay, it's uncropped, but it's full censored. Or sorry, it's not oversampled, so, okay. It just seems the wording is a little bit strange because I would think uncropped, it's full censor, right?
No, it is full. That means it's full sensor, but it's like
Yeah,
how
but
is
they
it
said
reading?
oversample was only up to 4K 60.
Yeah,
And then
the
they said 4K
oversample.
120 was uncropped. So,
Yeah,
marketing
so it's
term.
basically it's probably going to be pixel binning. It's probably like some pixel binning
Yeah,
for 4K, which is not a big deal. I mean, look, the
no,
R5 does pixel binning at 4K 120, but the 120 still looks great.
it does. All right, I'm going to hit Sony Alpha Rumors up here, and let's see if they have any more information. I don't see Andrea. Sometimes Andrea will come in the stream with us. So, no, see, it's the details that I want to get. That's what makes a huge difference here. And I know you guys want the details too because, look, there's still 332 people watching. So there's more people watching now because you want the
Oh,
details like we do.
so someone
So
said it's a double CF Express Type A on the Dutch website.
yeah,
Okay.
like I said, I figured it was Type A.
Yeah,
So
but Gen 3 or 4 makes a difference, right?
yeah, and Central. No, this is not the first Sony camera with a 4K 120 uncrop. Um, the A. Correct me if I'm wrong, FOMO. The A7S III and the FX3 don't crop in 4K 120. If I'm
I don't believe they
correct.
do. Yeah.
God, I love 2024. So Canon R5 Mark II is coming out in Q1. We got the R1. Will the Z9 get a refresh? Will the A1 get a refresh? The A1 Mark II? This at the high end. And because remember, we've got the Olympics driving this. And then what happens in 2025, early 2025? We have the Winter Olympics. So or is it 2025? I think it's right after, isn't it? Either way, we have a lot going on at the high end. And the high end is where we see all the latest and the greatest. It's like the TV show Top Gear or the Grand Tour. I could never afford any of those cars, with the exception of the Corvette. But I didn't watch it because I was looking for real world reviews. I was watching people live with those cars, what it would be like to have those cars and see them get up to antics. That's why I watched the show. And so, you know, I want to say thank you to everybody watching because of you. I am now at a point where I have funding in place, depending on how taxes go at the end of the year. But no, I have funding in place for the R5 Mark II and the R1. I am still primarily a Canon shooter. Hopefully, when this channel gets closer to $100,000, I'll be able to afford to buy the major cameras from everybody. That's where I want to be because I don't want to be just seen as a Canon shooter. But it takes a huge investment because you don't just buy the body, you have to buy all the lenses as well. So somebody
How much
asked, what have we missed here? Who would like to give an update on what we've heard so far?
Everything, Derek. You missed everything. It's but so Sony announced a new 300 millimeter lens at f2.8. They also announced the A9 III global shutter. A lot of great photo features. I think 8 stops of IBIS. Video, it's 10-bit 422. They offer all eye. They offer raw out. 4K up to 60 frames a second, oversampled from 6K, and then 4K 120 frames per second non-crop. And it's $6,000. How much is $6,000 in Canadian right now?
Probably around 10 grand. Let me do a quick calculation.
Oh
So
man.
6,000. No, hold on. No, you haven't heard the worst of it yet. So let's just do the exchange rate. So based on the exchange rate today, I see it's probably around 72. So 1.35 times 1.35 is, that's not right, 6,000 times 1.35 is 8,100 times 13% tax in Ontario, 9,153 Canuck bucks. And if you're in Australia, it's probably even higher, although you do get a 5-year warranty. But see, here's the thing. 2 years ago, that would have been $2,000 less, or 3 years ago, because our currency fluctuates. So based on where you are in time, the camera can jump in price or drop in price just because people on the Chicago Mercantile or the FTSE 100 are bidding the dollar up and down, and that's frustrating. It really is. But look at Japan. Their currency's down like well over 30%. That's tough because you think food prices are bad in the US or the UK. Well, when you have your currency drop another 15%, guess what that does to food prices that come out of the country in the winter?
I'll say it's interesting is the sentiment on your chat. I was looking at some of the chat on the Sony official stream. It's tepid. You have those who really want it, right? And
Yes.
they're really excited. And then most people, the focus was, wait, 24 megapixels for $6,000? And that is killing it right now. 24 megapixels for $6,000?
I think what people want to see, because again, the R3, I didn't get the R3 myself because it's not my wheelhouse. But really, if we had the A7 A7S4 now, I think that would get a lot of people's attention. Although I think Panasonic has said that they don't believe in 8K, and I know it's not a Panasonic, but I wonder if Sony believes in 8K. Oh, somebody said 6K is 35,000. Yeah, see, what we like to do in Canada is over-exaggerate, the opposite of British. So it's, 6,000 US works out to be a small mortgage and $500,000. It's not that bad.
Andrea's here.
Oh, there he is. And Andrea, if you want to join us for a few minutes, I can send you a link. You can join us if you like. Let me know. We wouldn't mind having you come in and give us your thoughts. You were right, and I said that throughout this video. Whenever we came up with something, I said you got it right. Do you want to show up for 5 or 10 minutes and just address your audience? I'd love to have you come in if you could. Yeah, well, we don't always get everything correct. And that's just how things are, right? We can't always get everything correct. Tell you what I'll do. I'll just send you the link anyways. And if you can make it, great. Because we still have over 300 people watching. They're hungry for more information. And we're waiting to try and get more information. So let me just link and paste it. And we don't care if you're wearing a suit, whether you're outside, whether you're in the basement, or even in the kitchen. I'll just send you that link. So if he does show up, guys, we'll bring him in. But I've seen a lot of comments where people will slam Sony Alpha rumors because they never get anything right. And, well, that's certainly not the case. The A7R5, he was, 95% correct on that one. The A6700, the A7C2, the A7CR, the Nikon ZF out of his wheelhouse, and the Canon 200 to 800 also out of his wheelhouse. And that's just in the last year alone. And where I think what people do is they don't read sometimes, and they take a look at his posts that say wild rumors, and that's code for, just some guy sent this to me. I have no validation, but here, enjoy it. And that's what that is. And I get the same.
100%? But was it 100%? If it's not 100%, then how can I take his credibility?
Yes.
Yeah, he got the 90. Yes, he got 95, 98%, but it wasn't 100%. So complete shill.
I had, on my last stream, guys, what happened was really interesting. I had a guy dogging me for the prices, and he kept trying to push me and say, well, what's your source, Simon? What's your source? How do we know these are correct? And going I'm not giving up my source. And the guy was dogging me the whole time. And sure enough, at midnight, I was bang on. So, guys, I got a real treat for you here. A friend of mine is joining us. He's the editorial director and owner of Sony Alpha Rumors and a YouTube channel in his own name. I'm going to try and say his name correctly. It's Andrea Pizzani. photography.
No, wrong.
Help me.
Pizzini.
Pizzini. Thank you.
Yeah, you say E, not I. Yeah, that's Italian thing.
I'll remember that.
Yeah.
What do you think? Tell us your thoughts.
I had no time to really think about it because I had to write a lot and collect a lot of information. So I actually don't have any thought about the camera itself. I was just happy that I wasn't wrong with my rumors because this remembered me the times of the A1, where only a small group of people had the chance to actually see the camera. I also noticed, for example, there is no A9 III YouTuber review. You will see 300mm GM reviews, but no A9 III. So unlike many other announcements, this is more like the A1 announcement. Sony kept it secret. Also, the camera will only ship in spring. So, yeah, they probably anticipated the announcement of the camera. That's the information I got. That's why I was worried that I would be wrong with the timing, because actually the original timing for the release was January, and I don't know why they anticipated it. No idea. And that I'm right. It's the proof is that the camera will only ship in spring, which is unusual for Sony. Usually, the camera should be available 1-2 months after.
Yeah.
So but I watched the video from Sony, the presentation, and I know people were disappointed when I shared the rumor about the 24 megapixel global shutter and so forth, but the presentation was really great, and I actually hope that every future Sony Alpha camera will have global shutter. That would be nice, because there are some real true benefits that I, as a still photographer, not sports photographer, I really would love to have on my future A7R, for example. And yeah, that's it.
A couple of things we're trying. And by the way, I don't know if you watched my stream, but everyone
No.
in the audience can testify. Is when we were watching live, I said Andrea Pizzani predicted this. He got that right. He got that right.
Thanks.
I also said that. See, people don't understand too is that whenever you put wild rumors on your site, it just means you don't know where it came from. It just came in, entertainment purpose. But whenever you say trusted sources or validated or triple validated, it means, hey, you're getting this from people you know and trust, and there's a pretty good chance you're bang on with it. And so I talked about all the cameras over the last 12 months, including Canon and Nikon, where you nailed it. So you deserve a lot of credit for this. Thank you.
Thanks.
One thing we're trying to figure out, because we don't have any specs even on B&H, Adorama, we don't know about Europe, we're trying to figure out if this camera has dual CF Express Type A, whether they do CF Express Type B, or whether they're going to support Gen 4 Type A. Because with 120 frames per second, even at 24 megapixels.
On BH Photo, you can read dual CF Express Type A SD card slot. They are now updating the page with the specs. So if you go over to BH Photo, you will probably find some answers now. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Nope, so the search isn't doing it. Let's go to the main page.
Oh,
let's try Sony A9 III. So it just could be where I'm getting it from, but that's delayed. So let's try Adorama. No. I've seen this before too.
I don't know how I can send you a link. I can send you an email with the link.
Yeah, send me an email with the link. It's very interesting. I've seen this before too. People will see it before me because depending on DNS updating, or I don't know what technically is doing it, you can see here what I see. So I'm going to go over to my other screen here and let's see. Wait patiently for an email from Europe, assuming that's where you are. Here we go. I've got the link. Let's copy that link and paste it. Here we go. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrea. So let's go right to the specs, which we are here. Now, you all had some questions, so let's take a look at CF Express. I don't don't see a whole lot here. Okay, let's go back up to the top. I'm going too fast. CF.
It's probably not fully out there.
There we go. So there you go. It is type A, but keep in mind, don't be too dejected yet, because as long as this camera is fast enough internally, once somebody releases a Gen 4 CF Express type card, you're going to get CF Express type B speed. So that's a pretty good thing. All right, well, since I've got Andrea here, guys, in the audience or as panelist guests, does anybody have any questions you would like to ask Andrea now that he's here? It can be anything Sony related or related to his channel. And please go to his channel and subscribe. Be very much appreciated. Any questions for Andrea?
I have a question. Is the $6,000 a surprise for you, Andrea? Because I know people are thinking less.
I was when I got the information, I was thinking, yeah, if it really has global shutter and 120 FPS, it should cost more. But the pricing info I got from another source much earlier, so 2 months ago. You will notice on the presentation video of the A9 III that they shoot some triathlon athletes. Yeah, there are some people on the beach.
Yep.
That's actually close to Barcelona. And there were Sony of Rumors readers that spotted this. They were there. And they talked to the Sony guys there, and they gave them the pricing info. And I think at the time, those Sony guys really thought that this could be the pricing. And probably in the meantime, so 2 months, the information I got was correct. I mean, from sources that didn't lie to me, and it was really from Sony. But probably there was some kind of problem between Sony Japan and the Sony team recording those videos. But so that's the error. And so I think at $6,000, that's actually more reasonable. I would have loved it would cost less, but of course, in the meter we have inflation, everything. It's a new sensor, so.
Yeah, and guys, this is really exciting. But you've also been teasing us. I haven't done a video yet, because before I do a video, I like to get a bit more information. Nice. That's got to be loud. I'll ask you a question, I'll go on mute. The A7S4, what do you know about that?
So I'm actually, the one thing I was thinking when I watched the video, they are teasing the firmware update for the A7S3 in March.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually was thinking, there is no A7S4 coming now in January. That was but that's just my instinct thinking. There is no reason why I'm thinking this, but I'm not sure they're teasing such a big firmware update for the A7S3, and then if they would launch the A7S4 in January, I don't know. But I have currently no info on this. And I have to answer a call. Can you give me 1 minute?
Yep, take it. See, source information coming in all the time, guys. So, next question I'm going to ask him is about the A9 Mark II, because I had a source telling me before the end of the year. He said definitely not this year. So see if he knows anything else. But it's great to have him on the channel, because it's a chance for him and all of us to have a conversation. And I respect him. I respect Craig. I respect a lot of the guys out there, because we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to deliver a product to you that is as validated as we can possibly get in where the information is moving. And we've seen this with the R6 Mark II, is right up until the last minute, things can change and do change. And sometimes you even see this with Apple presentations, that they will go ahead and right on the day of announcement say, okay, you know what? This is going to be coming in a later firmware update.
No, la fermo subito, non sono interessato.
I wonder if I can mute him, because he probably doesn't want to be... I just muted you there, because I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't want it broadcast.
I was waiting for a call from a guy, but it wasn't that call, and that I needed some 20 seconds to realize what it was about. It was about trying to sell me something. Yeah,
I love that.
Life insurance.
A9 probably. I don't know.
I had a source tell me several months ago that the A9 Mark II is going to be announced before the end of the year. Now, you've since said that no, it's definitely not having in 2023. Do you think it'll come out before the Olympics?
What you mean the A1 too?
Sorry, yes. What did I say?
The A9.
The
You said the
A92.
A2. Yeah, yeah. I
The
was thinking
A92.
that.
You know,
Yeah,
that came out years ago.
yeah. So I don't know. I really don't know. I think. Yeah. I think there is a chance. Yes. Um, but I really don't know. I have a very good source that actually knows everything well ahead, like really well ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't tell me anything about that camera yet. So I'm waiting for him to drop a message to tell me what to expect. But um, sometimes I wonder if the A7S lineup should still be there. Like uh, I don't know if with the A9 II you can do probably global shutter 4K no crop video. And then I wonder the A7S for what should it be to really be much better than this camera? It should be, yeah, probably a 8K global shutter camera. So I don't know if you have the A1 II and the A9 III. I don't know where the A7S 4 would actually really
Yeah.
fit. They should really make it different, and I don't know how.
It's a
That's what I
crowded
don't.
lineup.
Yeah,
Like, I remember that slide you showed with all the cameras they released in just the last year, and it's mind-boggling. It's, no one's saying that Sony doesn't have enough cameras out there, whereas they're looking at Canon and Nikon or Panasonic and going, hey, where's this camera? It's been 4 years. Where's this camera? With Sony, it's like, you want a camera? Yeah, we got 3 A7Cs. You want a whatever it is, we got it for you. So I'm really excited. I almost got the A7S III, but it just took so long for it to come out. If they had released it 6 months earlier, I would have bought it. I'd be a Sony customer now. Just
yeah. I really think they should reinvent themselves. It's about time they do something really different. They are trying it with a C lineup to be somehow different, but it's just it looks like an A7 without the EVF on top. So I think that they should really put some effort in design. I highly value design. I think a camera is a object that you also want to desire. It's something you carry around. You see it all the time. It should also have some the design always goes also with usability. So it's not just it's beautiful and that's it, but it's something like also that enables you to shoot differently. And so I think they should really focus on creating different kind of designs, but I don't think they will do it. That's pity.
I know. Now, what I am impressed with when we got that first Nikon ZF leak from you, I'm like, hey, this isn't Sony. And then we saw you and Nikon Rumors both posting information, and you nailed that one well. And then about a month ago, you started talking about this Canon 200 to 800 millimeter. I'd never heard of this before. Canon Rumors hadn't talked about it. And sure enough, you were bang on. It's the most popular Canon lens produced in the last 5 years. We can see this from pre-orders. Just absolutely bonkers. And then you teased recently that you might, I think it was in the video this morning or last night, you said, and I have some more information coming on Canon. Can you tease us anything about what it might be, whether it's a body or a lens or a photocopier?
No, I have. So the thing is, I'm the past years I was super busy. I barely had time to work on SonyFilmos.com. That has to do with some actually not so good news, and I had to fight through some stuff in my personal life, like everybody has sometimes. For me, it was many years. So this is actually now, since the last 3 months, the first time I have more time. So I'm actually working, for example, to clean up SonyFilmos.com, which is old code, too much ads going around. I still have to fix a lot of stuff. And I started to talk again more with my sources, and then they also happened to know something about other brands. So it wasn't like a planned thing to talk about Nikon ZF or the Canon 200 800 millimeter. It's just that now I have a bit more time to to talk more with them. And so I realized that I can leverage on the trust they have with me, because I know they can count on me being correct, and they can tell me what's going on, and I will always be super careful with information they share. And so maybe if I still will have some time the next year, I will try to talk more about other brands too, because I'm absolutely no fanboy. I like innovation wherever it comes from. And so, for example, I'm very also interested in what Panasonic and Leica are doing. And that's where, for example, I get most of the latest rumors. So there will be some rumors coming out now about Panasonic and then Leica,
Nice.
I think, from a good source. And I think if I would start over, me as an owner of camera, I probably would also about joining L mount, for example. And so maybe you can expect me to do some more, but certainly not too much, because I still have other things in life. So if I have some Canon rumors I cannot share a post, I will pass them over to you, and you can do whatever you want.
You know
So
what? If you ever did that, I'd be so thankful. And you know what I'll do too? I'll cite you as a source, and
yeah, that's fine.
because I strongly believe in sourcing credit. Nobody owns news and rumors, but I think it's very important to report the source and let those people take the credit for it. So if you ever do that, yeah, thank you, because see, you never know where you're going to develop sources, right? We all compete with each other, but at the same point, you'd be surprised that behind the scenes we also support each other too. Because I was talking earlier this morning, Andrea, about how I was just the language and how you were speaking in your videos, that yes, you were getting this from trusted and well-known sources, but there's still that stress you feel about it actually being correct right up until the last moment. And if you get 3 out of 4 correct, it's a big win. And I know how that feels, because the Canon EOS R6 Mark II, I had 7 things correct, but I got the stack sensor wrong. And some people just say, well, he's useless. He never gets anything correct. So I know what it's like to go through that. And I know that even though this source, they should know, and they're really connected, but things can always change. So I know what it feels like to be there. And you guys might not realize this, but when I was covering the 200 to 800 millimeter, there were times where Andrea would tell me things behind the scenes as well. So, wherever we can, like I've also sent something to Andrea. I said, look, I just heard about the A9 II. Is it coming this year? What do you think? And I don't care if I'm the first to the market with everything all the time. I think we work together. We try to deliver a product to you. And that's why I have Andrea here, because we are a camera community. I am a fanboy. I don't know about Andrea, but I'm a fanboy of cameras. And I just get excited when I see the latest and greatest innovation. But like my photographer friend here locally, there's nothing wrong with old technology. People are still shooting with 10-year-old cameras and being able to deliver shots to their clients.
I'm still shooting with my Mamiya 7, because it makes me a better photographer, not because of image quality, not because it's particularly beautiful, but because it learns me to focus. But what you said about sharing info, I'm in this industry since 14 years. I could write books about my talks with other rumor sites, with my talks with managers and everything. And the one thing that really I learned is most of the people are a bit poisoned in the mind when it comes to working together. So there's a lot of I had rarely good relationship with people, because there's always that a thing involved, like my stuff, it's money, it's views and whatever. And I completely abandoned this. Maybe people will not believe it, but I realized in the past years, with all those struggles, that I will only always look at the bright side of life. And so I'm also, I have an ego, but I completely try to remove it and just enjoy the moment, enjoy the camera, enjoy whatever. And I actually don't care anymore what people say about me. I mean, I don't even look at the comment system for real. And I don't care. I don't have, life is so short. I don't have time for this. What I want is to be as honest as loyal as possible to my sources, as honest as possible to you. Sometimes I'm too overexcited. I share news and then I realize maybe, so I can do mistakes, but it's always honest. And I think the camera industry is always interesting. There's AI, smartphones, whatever, but still camera will be always very important for me as a photographer. So I realize every time there's an announcement, I'm passionate. So I'm happy that we got this A9 III with global shutter. I'm curious to test it out, and there's so much more technology coming. That's always something interesting to talk about.
I want to touch on trust and credibility, because that's one of the biggest things I find is people are afraid to give you things because they're worried about what it could do for their career. And I think it takes time for people to actually see who you are. And it's not so much they see what you present online, it's they hear through dealing with other people. What is this guy actually like? And then it can take years and years and years to develop sources. And one of the ones I have now, which has been really helpful in getting me pricing and data information, it's very appreciative for what they provide. But I want to be positive. I don't want to be promoting anything toxic. And I do read the comments, but I also on YouTube, I have all these filters that I look for certain words and I filter those out because I don't want to have to read it. And part of that building that community, I want the comments to be where people can talk to each other. They can disagree, but I don't want name calling. Yeah. I don't want that trolling. And I feel that. And that's why I have other YouTubers here with me, because I want to help them get a better audience. I want to provide, I understand that if I do this by myself, ego aside, it's going to be not nearly as good as having the guests that I have on here. For the first hour and a half with James and Stop the FOMO, what an incredible conversation. And they're working behind the scenes, getting the information. And then for you to come on here is kind of like the cherry on top of the cake. The guy responsible for all these rumors, I was just reiterating what you said. But, what do you think, James?
Sorry. But, look, trust is a thing. And look, when you're dealing with rumors, nothing's going to be perfect. I think I kind of figured off you, Andrea, with Black Magic.
I think we're having trouble hearing you with all the kids in the background. They're louder than you.
They have them. They should join the show. Let them join the show.
All right, let me ask Stop the FOMO, because honestly, it's so loud, we cannot hear you. FOMO, your thoughts.
What was the question, Simon? I'm sorry.
Well, we're talking about trust and being a positive influence in the field, and not, stabbing people, not being toxic.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's like that in all the YouTube subniches, I would say. So in the TV review community is very similar. So we're trying to collaborate more. Having us on, I do the same in my segment, as I have other YouTubers on who are in my exact same space. And it just makes it for the viewers to enjoy. They don't have to choose. They don't have to go, oh, well, if I like this reviewer, maybe I don't like that reviewer, because we're all part of the same, I'd say it's consumer advocacy, right? We want to help you make the decision. It doesn't matter, because they're watching everyone. It's not really a zero-sum game to a certain degree. It's like they either like you or they don't. If they like you, they watch you. If they don't, they won't. But your interaction with other YouTubers or other collaborators doesn't change their preferences anyway, regardless. So I love it when you have different guests on, for sure. But speaking of being on, I have to run to my morning workout now.
Thank you for showing up, Stop the FOMO. We're going to wind down shortly, but one thing people don't realize is you really coached me last year with helping me with my thumbnails and approach to content. So, people don't realize that we learn and we mentor each other too. So thank you very much for joining us today.
All right. Thanks. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to switch us over to a different screen here, and let's bring Andrea in as guest one. So I am going to wind things down. Anything you would like to say, James, as kind of closing off here? Final thoughts.
Um, Final thoughts, I guess, for me is just um, it's the A9 III is it's a solid camera. I think from a filmmaking standpoint, as I mentioned early on, $6,000 is a bit higher than I was anticipating it. I get for the global shutter, but just purely from a video perspective, I feel like there's other options that are more video centric in that price point that is more appealing. Um, but it's a good camera. I think from a photography standpoint, I know that there's a specific group. This is targeted to a very, very specific group of still shooters that are going to enjoy this camera. Um, yeah. So overall, I've had a great time. What I was trying to say to Andrea is that look, nobody. These are rumors. Nobody ever gets rumors, right? I took your rumors
Well,
from
100% right.
Yeah, 100%. Get from the joining the L Mount Alliance. That was always a big conversation when that whole thing came out. At the end of the day, it's like it's all news gathering. Really, it's even if we hear the news, it's more about what the camera it doesn't fit our need. So hearing this, it's very cool. It's very intriguing. It's always very excited. But at the end of the day, until I get the camera in my hands, I'm always keeping it at a distance. And as always, Simon, thank you for inviting me. Once again, I've had a great time in these streams with you.
Thank you very much, James. And I can now validate that pre-orders do start tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to update the pre-order links after this meeting directly to this page. But the smart ones that I have will show you the A9 with any different other packages available, as well as if it's paired with different lenses or packages made by Adorama or B&H. So if you would use my pre-order links, copy them down. The ones I have now will still work. If you do use those to pre-order tomorrow, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's greatly appreciated. If you purchase from your local camera store, again, terrific. Support your local camera store. If you pre-order from Andrea, Sony F Rumors, or others, that's terrific too. But I just want to say, for those of you that have used my pre-order links, especially for the Canon lenses last week, thank you so much. Now, for the final comments, I would like to give Andrea Pizzani, did I say it correct? Better? Oh, hold on, I got you on mute.
Okay. It's Pizzini, always E. Pizzini.
Pizzini. I will eventually get it.
I should. Yeah, I will find a new name. I know.
No, it's up to me to learn your name. I believe in trying to get a person's name right. Your parents, after all, came up with it for you. Your final thoughts before we close off.
It's a great camera, I think, for what it is. For the pros it's meant to be. Probably it's not for the masses. But it teases us what's coming next. I think global shutter is here to stay, at least for high-end cameras. And I'm wondering what's coming next, because there's surely a new high-end camera coming in January. And so there's a lot of work for me to do to figure out what's coming.
Terrific. And like you said, if you ever get inundated, send me the information. I'll be more than happy to source you. But thank you very much for coming on the channel. I always appreciate seeing what surprises your website brings. I appreciate your support as well. James, thank you very much for coming on Stop the FOMO. And, I want to thank everybody, you out there, who dialed in early this morning to watch me and my guests talk about this camera. My promise to you is, whenever there's a major camera announcement, do my best to have a live stream. Today almost didn't happen. I was lucky enough that I got permission to book the vacation time off today, even though I had a meeting. So I thank you for showing up, participating. We had a good 300 subscribers, viewers watching the entire stream, and I'm very happy with the outcome. So from me to you and for all my guests, thank you so much for dialing in. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on X.